Chapter 1282. A chill ran down his spine straight to his soul, giving Fan Xing goosebumps all over his body. But he still hadn't given up on the idea of gathering information. Although there were currently rumors that Lotus Sun was critically ill, this was a serious matter, and the young man couldn't just listen to one side of the story. That was why he had come to the villa where Lotus Sun lived to find out the truth. In his heart, he earnestly hoped that Lotus Sun was dead. As long as he could confirm her death, he could immediately have the company's stockbrokers accurately cash out in the stock market. If he acted now, it would actually be risky. The young man didn't have a lot of savings, and he wanted to do something big this time and invest all his money. Hence, he needed to act steadily. For the past 2 days, he had been staying overnight and causing trouble here, using all kinds of shameless methods to try to provoke the head maid and the other maids here so that he could get the truth out of them. However, everyone here was tight-lipped, and no matter what he asked, they wouldn't say half a word. This made Fan Xing feel a little uncomfortable. At that moment, Fan Xing turned his gaze to Odd Zhua, who was standing next to Auntie Chiu. He knew that Odd Zhua was Lotus Sun's senior, and the two of them had to be related. Furthermore, Odd Zhua was wearing a special Huagua Water Curtain Group employee ID. This allowed Fan Xing to see new hope. Maybe Odd Zhua knew something. Obviously, the young man didn't realize that he was courting death. "Isn't this Director Zhua?" Fan Xing said with a slightly contemptuous expression. "I wonder what an outsider like Director Zhua is doing at my little sister Lotus Sun's place. My sister and I have already pledged to marry each other. Isn't it a little late for you to come fawn over her?" The corners of Odd Zhua's mouth twitched violently. It wasn't just Auntie Chiu, even he couldn't help himself. But Senior Death Heavenly Dao had already taken action, so he just needed to be patient and watch the show. Fan Xing felt a little uncomfortable under the gaze of this young man in overalls. He didn't know why, but when he looked at this young man, he felt a bone-piercing chill. Thus, Fan Xing frowned again and said, "In any case, Director Zhua is my junior sister Lotus Sun Senior. Where did this guru come from?" "Death Heavenly Dao, Fan Xing, what are you looking at? So what if you have big eyes?" What was the point of glaring at him? "If you have the ability, stare me to death. An outsider like you has no right to cause trouble in my younger sister's house." As soon as he finished speaking, Fan Xing felt his body getting colder and colder for some reason. He snorted and stood up from the sofa. He glanced at the maids and said, "I seem to have caught a cold. I'm going back to my room. Hurry up and make me a bowl of ginger soup and a typhoid recovery pill. Otherwise, don't even think about getting tips." After that, the young man left arrogantly with a few bodyguards dressed in black who accompanied him. "Senior, you're not going to make a move?" Odd Zhua couldn't take it anymore. Death Heavenly Dao's voice was cold. "The countdown has already started. In less than 24 hours, he'll definitely be sent to the hospital." Previously, Death Heavenly Dao had indeed had the urge to glare at Fan Xing to death. His eyes were the Heavenly Dao's stare of death's demon eye. As long as he used his soul force and stared at a person for more than 10 seconds, that person would immediately die. But due to Fan Xing continuing to provoke unceasingly, this made Death Heavenly Dao change its mind. It would be too easy for him to just glare him to death. Half dead was the greatest torture. In the spiritual space, Lotus Sun asked curiously, "Senior, what will happen to my cousin?" Death Heavenly Dao, "Don't worry, Miss Sunday. He won't die, but his life is over." Lotus Sun sighed. "I didn't expect him to be so vicious." After Fan Xing left, Auntie Chiu naturally apologized. Fan Xing hadn't left for the past 2 days, which was giving her quite a headache. "Auntie Chiu, I've made a fool of myself. It's my fault, I shouldn't have let him in." "It's alright, Auntie Chiu. This kind of person will naturally get what he deserves," Odd Zhua said with a smile. Elsewhere, Fan Xing, who had returned to his room, felt uneasy all over. For some reason, it was getting colder and colder. Lying on the bed in the guest room, his body went limp and he felt like he had lost all his strength. "Oh no, young master seems to have a fever. Get the private doctor in the villa to come and take a look. That won't do, I already asked around. This private doctor has also been transferred to the hospital for a meeting. The bodyguards who had come along were discussing this. Cut the crap. If you have the time, hurry up and tell those maids to hurry up. Fan Xing shouted in a low voice. Hearing this, the bodyguards left the room one after another. At that moment, Fan Xing was the only one left in the room. Murderous intent quietly descended, his head rested on the pillow. For some reason, Fan Xing felt that the pillow seemed especially soft today. He closed his eyes and rested for a while. But it wasn't long before the young man started to feel stuffy and hot. He could feel his breathing becoming labored. In a split second, like a salted fish struggling on its deathbed, Fan Xing abruptly jumped up from the bed. What's going on? Then he was astonished to find that, at some point, there was a big hole in the pillow. The cotton wadding that had spilled out had all flowed into his nostrils and mouth. Bah bah bah, ugh, he did his best to dig out the foreign matter from his mouth and nose. Kneeling on the ground, Fan Xing stared at the cotton wadding that was soaked with his saliva and snot as he dug it out of his mouth and nose. The strange scene in front of him terrified him. He realized that he couldn't stay in the room alone any longer. Someone come quickly, he yelled. However, there wasn't the slightest movement outside the guest room. The bodyguards were all chased away by him. They went to urge the maids to prepare the medicinal soup. Not a single person stayed behind to watch over him, damn it. Fan Xing gritted his teeth, pounced on the door, and angrily turned the handle on the door. Then there was a cracking sound. The entire handle was twisted off by him. Fan Xing. However, before the young man could react to how he could twist off the door handle of the bedroom so easily, at this moment, one of the screws on the door suddenly fell and rolled to the young man's feet. Fan Xing was in a daze and didn't notice the situation under his feet at all. He stepped on the screw with his bare feet. A sharp pain came instantly. It penetrated his whole body. In the midst of a scream, the young man lost his balance. As he stumbled, he saw that he was about to hit the edge of the bed. Fan Xing used the last of his strength to instill psionic power into the top of his head. He strengthened the hardness of his head. The next moment, his iron head hit the edge of the bed. The huge impact caused the entire bed to be lifted up. It completed a perfect 360-degree Thomas full rotation in the air and then fell heavily on the lower half of his body. Young master. The medicine is here. The bodyguard had already rushed back with the medicine in his hand. Hearing the movement inside the door, he hurriedly kicked the door open and entered. Young master, what's wrong with you? The bedroom door was kicked away like a spinning guillotine and directly hit Fan Xing's head. In an instant, the bedroom was filled with blood. Chapter 1283. Half an hour later, the ambulance arrived at the Sun family's villa. When the emergency doctor arrived, Fan Xing was still pinned under the bed. Why didn't you pull your young master out? What if he strained himself? The bodyguards looked at each other. They didn't dare move for no other reason than they were afraid of causing a second injury to their young master. Pulling him out would at most cause another fracture. In this situation, the bedside is directly pressing against his spine. The emergency doctor didn't dare continue. Judging from his personal experience, even if Fan Xing was eventually rescued, he would probably be left paralyzed. But considering Fan Xing's relationship with Huaguo Water Curtain Group, if Huaguo Water Curtain Group was willing to provide some high-quality pills for body recovery, he would be able to walk, but he wasn't sure about anything else. With current cultivation medical technology, physical damage and bone fractures weren't a big deal for cultivators. What they were most afraid of was nerve damage. Even if Fan Xing could be rescued and regain his ability to walk, he would still be a cripple. He might even have problems with his balance. Not to mention flying on a sword, even running would be a problem. After a simple appraisal and bandaging, the emergency doctor directed the people at the scene to dig out Fan Xing, who had been pinned under the bed for a long time, and carried him onto a stretcher. Doctor, What happened to my young master? I wanted to ask you what happened. Why did the room look like a car accident even though he was asleep? The bodyguard looked aggrieved. It seems like the doorknob was spinning, and a nail fell. Young master didn't pay attention and stepped on the nail. He lost his balance due to the pain and crashed into the bed, causing the entire bed to flip. What about the door? The doctor questioned. I accidentally stabbed him when I kicked the door open to save him. The bodyguard said. The emergency doctor sighed, then made a preliminary appraisal of Fan Xing's injuries. Comminuted skull fracture, brain juice and blood seeping out of the crack. The soles of his feet were pierced by a mystic iron nail. He might have tetanus. Pressure on his spine, causing intermittent shock. He fell to the floor, which is made of top-grade mystic stone and is extremely hard, causing your young master's knees to shatter. At the same time, a rib pierced through his chest after the fracture and inexplicably stabbed into his lower body pouch. What pouch? He's a man after all. What other pouch could he have? When the emergency doctor said this, he couldn't help but feel sad. A single rib could skewer the things in the bag like a mutton kebab. He had never seen such a magical operation. Of course, this was not the end. The strangest thing is that there is cotton wool in his oral cavity. I just took a brief look with the scanning magical equipment. Some of the cotton wool is blocked in his lungs and stomach. He needs to be operated on as soon as possible. Then can my young master still be saved? The bodyguards were shocked and turned pale. Now that Fan Xing was in such a big trouble, they might not be able to keep their jobs. This is also the strangest thing to me. The emergency doctor glanced at Fan Xing on the stretcher. None of these injuries could be considered fatal, but when stacked together, it was enough to take a person's life. But the strangest thing was that Fan Xing was still breathing. He was still stubbornly living on. Earlier, when the ambulance arrived at the Sun family's villa, the emergency doctor already had a bad feeling in his heart. Because of the long distance, it took them a lot of time to get here. According to the bodyguard's description, Fan Xing's injuries seemed to be very serious, and there was probably no hope of treatment. Who knew that Fan Xing would actually still be breathing despite such serious injuries? It seems that everything is the will of the heavens. At that moment, the emergency doctor stared at Fan Xing and sighed in his heart. He felt that Fan Xing was really lucky. If it wasn't for the blessings of the heavens, how could this person still be alive? Fan Xing had died very peacefully. He had been sent out of the Sun family's villa on a stretcher. The bodyguards who had been accompanying him followed him in tears, as if they were at a funeral. Watching this scene from a distance in Lotus Sun's room, Audiobook felt that Fan Xing really was dead. Senior Death Heavenly Tao, is he really still alive? Audiobook looked incredulous. Actually, compared with killing a person, I'm actually better at suppressing the bloodline. It's to keep people in a half-dead state. Death Heavenly Tao said, there used to be an old saying, the wicked will be dealt with by the heavens. That's actually true. For these wicked people, I often come up with ways to suppress their bloodline so that they die a painful death, and they usually choose to commit suicide in the end. Lotus Sun and Audiobook, junior sister Lotus Sun, what do we do next? Lotus Sun, it's very simple. I'll have to trouble Senior Joa to tidy up the things in my room. Then find a secluded place to burn them for me. Audiobook, burn them all? Lotus Sun thought carefully. Yes. There are two things that can't be burned. What is it? Keep my wardrobe and desk for now. It wasn't that the girl couldn't bear to part with them, but that there were some of her private clothes in the wardrobe. If she took them out in broad daylight and burned them, it seemed a little inappropriate. As for the desk, leaving the textbooks inside was secondary. It was just that the girl remembered the copybook that she had secretly hidden earlier. Wang Ling's handwriting was very beautiful. She had always been secretly imitating it. Audiobook was Wang Ling's disciple. If Senior Joa saw him imitating Wang Ling's copybook, how embarrassing would that be? What about the other things? Burn them all, we'll buy them again. All right, Audiobook smiled bitterly. In the end, this was the thinking of the rich. He used the great sacrificial art in tandem with the heavenly Tao of death. Except for the two things that Lotus Sun had specified that he hadn't burned, he burned almost everything in the girl's room. This was equivalent to moving Lotus Sun's room into the space inside the Buddha Golden Lotus. Should I burn the Wi-Fi? Audiobook asked. There's no need, Senior Joie. We can get an internet signal here, Lotus Sun replied. Audiobook was blank at first. But on second thought, it wasn't that strange. This Buddha Golden Lotus was something that Tyrant kept for his own protection. Perhaps the monk had also thought about surfing the internet in the soul space. In this day and age, everything was fine. Even if you lost your life, you couldn't be disconnected from the internet. Therefore, this Buddha space also came with its own private Wi-Fi that Golden Lamp had personally set up. As long as one was in the space of the Buddha Golden Lotus, they would be able to connect automatically. After recovering her internet access, she logged into her account. Because she was the president of the student union, she was the leader of number 60 High's campus group chat. Not to mention the class chat group, even the campus chat group had a heated discussion about her. But Lotus Sun wasn't in a hurry to tell everyone that she was safe. Instead, like Wang Ling, he learned to peek. Chapter 1284. Everything was as the girl had expected. The number of discussions about her was high, and almost every group was talking about her. When a topic aroused the participation and discussion of the people, all kinds of rumors and slanders would naturally follow. But this was all within Lotus Sun's expectations. This was exactly the effect she wanted. She wanted to see the people who were usually polite to her. What kind of attitude would they have after learning that she was about to die? After a lot of summarization, Lotus Sun had roughly divided the comments online into the following categories. 1. Deep sympathy. This was a group of compassionate and kind people, which was especially precious in the context of the environment. Ah! Wasn't the president fine during the competition a few days ago? How did she suddenly? Who knows which hospital she's in? I'm going to see her. I didn't expect something like this to happen to student Lotus Sunday. I'm praying for her. I hope she can overcome her illness soon and tide over this difficult time. I heard that many experts have already come for a consultation. They will definitely be able to save student Lotus Sun. Pray, 2. Eccentric people. These people were different from the official Yin-Yang Masters, and belonged to the category of online Yin-Yang Masters. To put it simply, these people seemed to be saying nice things, but there was a hint of mockery in their words, which made people unhappy. And those with high status were also known as big Yin Yang. Sure. Elementary Yin Yang Master. Isn't Huaguo Water Curtain Group the world's most powerful pill-making company? Intermediate Yin Yang Master. Sigh. If student Sun can't be cured even with so much money, how are we foundation establishment scums going to survive? Advanced Yin Yang Master. I heard that the experts attending this consultation are all eminent people. Funny, Grand Yin Yang Master. I'm not trying to start a war, I just want to ask, where did this person come from? To be able to gather so many famous experts and have such good medical resources? Envious. 2. Happy. 3. Gossipers who follow the rumors. One of the biggest characteristics of these people was that they could selectively ignore official news and would never get tired of the gossip circulating on the internet. The biggest difference between following the crowd and ordinary bystanders was that those who followed the crowd would not examine the truth of the matter and would only believe in what they believed. I just saw a message shared by student Lotus Sun's best friend in another group. She said that student Lotus Sun's illness was most likely contracted on Nine Dragon Mountain. I didn't expect her to do that kind of thing with a few boys during the competition. Are you serious? Student Sun, haven't you always had high standards? You may know a person's face, but you can't judge his heart. I didn't know that student Sun was such a person. Flies don't bite seamless eggs. I feel that there might be a problem with student Sun's style. When she was still alive, no one dared to talk about these things in real life or in online chat groups. This was a novel experience. Lotus Sun looked at these chat records and didn't feel very angry, because these were all false things to begin with. On the contrary, she seemed rather excited. Because for the first time, she felt the joy of peeping. When Lotus Sun shared a screenshot of this group chat with Audjua, he smiled coldly. Junior Lotus Sun, don't mind it. There will always be people who spread some false information. I don't mind it, I just think it's a little funny. Lotus Sun couldn't help laughing. Junior Lotus Sun is so generous, Audjua exclaimed. I've long anticipated this situation. Usually, some people are too embarrassed to say it, but now that they know I can't save her, they're letting go. Saying this, the girl forwarded another picture to Audjua. Look, Senior Joie, there's even a photoshopped picture. And this was the fourth type of people that Lotus Sun had summed up, photoshopped out of nothing. Look. I have screenshots of student Lotus Sun chatting with other people here. And someone even found student Lotus Sun's external social media account. It turns out that student Lotus Sun has always liked girls. No way. Eating melon, there are screenshots. It's absolutely true. And there are a lot of pictures of girls on student Sun's external social media account. It's suspected to be her ex-girlfriend. My God, I feel like I've eaten a big melon. No wonder student Lotus Sun rejected my confession before. It's not that she doesn't like me, it's that she doesn't like boys. Junior Lotus Sun, do you know who did it? Audjua asked. Actually, if one looked closely at these photoshopped pictures, it would be obvious that they were fake. That was because the background color of the fonts and the background color were completely different, the pictures were slightly blurry, and there was a watermark in the lower right corner of the picture, but it was clear that those who had the intention of spreading the word didn't care about these things. They only cared about how big of a melon they had eaten. I have a rough idea. Lotus Sun nodded. Who else could it be? It was none other than the members of the Warriors Club, which was a group of boys whom she had once rejected and turned from fans to haters. Previously, see Chapter 1088, the Rome Protection Club and the Warriors Club. Do you want me to look for them? Get them to clarify it? Audjua asked with concern. There were actually two main reasons for people who had the intention of photoshopping pictures to spread rumors and fabricate stories. One was that there was too little homework, and the other was that they didn't feel responsible for posting things online. Since this concerned the girl's reputation, Audjua wanted to directly intervene and help Lotus Sun clarify it. In the end, Lotus Sun was more patient than he had imagined. No need, Senior Joie. In any case, it's all fake, Lotus Sun said politely. You really don't need to do anything about it? The main thing is that there's no point in doing anything about it now, Senior Joie. The number of people spreading it isn't high enough to file a case. So you want to, let's see if it ferments later. If it's enough to file a case, we'll directly go after the source, Lotus Sun said calmly. Why does it feel like Junior Lotus Sun has already seen a lot of similar things? Audjua couldn't help asking. Previously, a competitor company spread rumors and smeared Huagua Water Curtain Group's name, and my grandfather had people deal with it the same way. Bear with it for now and write it down. We'll settle the score after we're sentenced. Audjua was stunned. As the saying went, it was never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. In the end, this was the thinking of a successor to a financial group. Lotus Sun scrolled through all kinds of comments online and was overjoyed. Senior Joie, this is the first time I've realized that peeping is so interesting. That's right. Audjua nodded. Even though he was sure that his Shifu Wang Ling was definitely peeping right now. Senior Joie. At that moment, the girl, who had been immersed in the joy of peeping, suddenly had a whim. Audjua, ? Lotus Sun, what do you think would happen if I send a string of ellipses in the group? Audjua, that was impossible. It would scare these people to death. Chapter 1285. After proposing to send an ellipsis, Lu Gan the girl stared at the screen in front of her and fell into deep thought. Audjua was actually looking forward to the explosive effect of the girl's ellipses. In the large group chat, whether it was the rumor mongers, photoshopped photos, or the bystanders, when they saw the parties involved online, they would definitely have to consider the issue of legal liability. At that time, it would definitely cause a large number of news retractions. It was rare to see such a collective withdrawal of information. But it was clear that Lotus Sun was considering even more problems. The girl hesitated for a moment, but in the end, she did not send out the ellipsis. Junior sister Lotus Sun, aren't you going to be naughty? Audra asked with a smile. If I send an ellipsis, classmate Wang Ling will definitely know that I already know that he's an almighty. Lotus Sun was very hesitant. Realization dawned on him. Only then did he realize that the young girl was worried about this matter. Master, that is indeed what I said. He has always kept a low profile. Audra nodded. Then I'd better not, otherwise classmate Wang Ling will definitely be troubled. In the end, she resolutely closed the group chat and didn't press the send button. Audra sighed with emotion at how sensible Lotus Sun was. No wonder his master was willing to spend so much effort to save him. Who else knows that I was moved into the Buddha's golden lotus? Lotus Sun asked. So far, apart from me, Master, Reverend Golden Lamp, and Senior Death Heavenly Tao, nobody knows. Even Grandpa doesn't know? Yes. Fortunately, I didn't tell Grandpa that I was safe just now. Otherwise, would he think it was a ghost? Lotus Sun couldn't help laughing. The preparations are almost done, Death Heavenly Will said. He had been sensing the movements of the Heavenly Court. With the cooperation of Grandmaster Jin Dang and the Realm King of the Immortal Realm, a grand tribulation ceremony was about to begin. Divine Tao Star would use divine crystals to recharge all the underground spirit veins on Earth. As a result, the spiritual chi on Earth became richer and more abundant. Complete the upgrade of Earth. From there, they would be able to further liberate the restrictions on Earth. So fast? Audra was a little surprised. Grandmaster Jin Dang's speed was unexpected. But there's one last step left. Death Heavenly Tao said. This last step was actually very simple. He needed to convince the major families in God's domain to agree to upgrading Earth. After all, this matter involved the interests of the God domain's upper-class families. Death Heavenly Tao felt that this matter would not be so simple, and a huge battle would be unavoidable. Do you want to take a look? Bring your junior sister along, Death Heavenly Tao asked. Did my Shifu go? Audra asked worriedly. There's no need for Ling Jinren to personally deal with those pieces of trash from the domain of the gods. Grandmaster Jin Dang is more than enough to handle it, Death Heavenly Law said. It was precisely because he knew that Wang Ling wouldn't be going in person that he planned to have Audra take Lotus Sun with him to see the big scene. Lower-class cultivators spectating a duel between high-level cultivators, apart from broadening their horizons, would also be of great help to their comprehension of Tao. This could be considered Death Heavenly Tao giving Lotus Sun and Audra special treatment. On Earth, a Foundation establishment stage cultivator would usually not be able to see a battle between perfected immortals, let alone a battle between perfected immortals. Can I go too? Lotus Sun was a little surprised. You can go, but how much you can remember is up to you. Don't forget that once you return to your body, your memories will disappear, Death Heavenly Tao reminded her kindly. He was actually also frantically giving the girl hints. Memories would disappear. But a good memory wasn't as good as a lousy pen. Don't you have a little notebook? Wouldn't it be over if he just wrote down everything he wanted to remember? However, Death Heavenly Tao couldn't just say it out loud. In the end, it all depended on the girl's comprehension. Then, Senior, how do we get there? Audra asked. Put your hand on my shoulder and I'll teleport directly. Then, Death Heavenly Tao formed a seal with his hand. A golden light blossomed from under his feet and then reached the horizon. This transmission channel was exclusive to Heavenly Tao and was a green passageway leading to the domain of the gods. When the channel opened, non-designated personnel wouldn't be able to sense it. Before the official transmission. Deaf Heavenly Tao glanced at Lotus Sun in the Buddha's golden lotus. It was very obvious. The girl had already received his hint. She had opened the cloud disk notepad on her computer in advance, intending to record the information manually. This girl was pretty smart. Before the transmission was activated, Deaf Heavenly Tao couldn't help but smile coldly in his heart. Elsewhere, in the conference hall of the Profound Path Great Hall in the domain of the gods, the top 10 clans in terms of overall combat strength had sent representatives to discuss Earth's upgrade. The Profound Path Great Hall was an iconic building of the domain of the gods, similar to a parliamentary conference hall. At that moment, the clan elders of several large clans had gathered in the conference hall. Although it was called a discussion, it was actually a war of words. What? Upgrade Earth? I don't agree. I definitely don't agree. Back then, Tao ancestors spread cultivation culture to Earth only for the continuation of civilization. And the domain of the gods is the true cultivation tradition. At that moment, an old man with a twisted beard slapped the table and shouted excitedly. The domain of the gods is a peaceful and supreme place for cultivators. It can't be tarnished. This agitated old man was Zhou Zhentian, the clan elder of the Zhou family, who ranked fourth on the ranking of clans in the domain of the gods. The monk had long since anticipated this scene. But looking at the old man in front of him who was spitting saliva everywhere, he couldn't help sighing in his heart. He sighed from the bottom of his heart at the quality of cultivators in the domain of the gods. After all, this touched on the issue of interests. Agitation was understandable. But what kind of place was the domain of the gods? This was the birthplace of cultivation that Tao ancestor Wang had founded back then. In this birthplace, a clan elder who claimed to be an upper-level almighty was loudly berating like a shrew cursing in the street. In the monk's view, this was really a disgrace to cultivators. This kind of bearing really couldn't compare to 1/10,000th of Lingzhenren's. Furthermore, it had clearly deviated from Tao ancestor Wang's original intention back then. Sailing against the current, one would either advance or fall back. In the monk's view, these words were very appropriate to describe the current situation in the domain of the gods. Hey! Monk! See, I told you they wouldn't agree. Holding her head in her hands, Miss Awan sat next to the golden lamp and anxiously watched the war of words in front of her. The monk fiddled with the prayer beads in his hand, his heart unperturbed. After the clan elders in the domain of the gods had finished cursing and expressing their opinions, the monk stood up and bowed to everyone. This humble monk feels that benefactors have misunderstood. Although Earth has been upgraded, there won't be many cultivators on Earth who have made the transition to the domain of the gods. According to the rules set by Tao ancestor Wang back then, only those who have touched the venerated immortal realm are qualified to come to the domain of the gods for further exchanges. Even if Earth completes its upgrade, the number of people who can touch the venerated immortal realm can be counted on one hand. However, the monk's words didn't sway the clan elders. Even so, that won't do. There aren't many now, but what if there are more in the future? Grand Elder Zhou Zhentian of the Zhou family flicked his sleeves and narrowed his eyes at the monk in front of him. There's still a monk. What kind of Buddha are you? What right do you have to represent Earth? If it weren't for the face of the world king of the god world, would you even have the right to speak here? Benefactor, this humble monk thinks you've misunderstood. The monk put his palms together and said sincerely, this humble monk isn't here to speak or ask for anything. Zhou Zhentian snorted. If it's not to speak, then what is it? This is a request. The monk said resolutely, if anyone doesn't agree, this humble monk will have no choice but to take action. Zhou Zhentian instantly laughed. What, you want to kill someone, monk? This humble monk is a monk, I don't kill. At this moment, the monk looked up and opened his mouth. He looked at the clan elder with the twisted beard and smiled. This is called transcendence. Chapter 1286. Everything was as the monk had expected. The cultivators of the domain of the gods had always lived like princes and held high positions. Now, they had instead become a little unmotivated. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before they were bound to become frogs at the bottom of a well, digging their own graves. The easiest way to deal with this group of people was to make them recognize reality. When the monk's swastika opened, the huge meeting hall of Tao Profound Hall was immediately enveloped in a Buddhist light. This wasn't an ordinary Buddhist light. When it fell on the elders present, they could clearly feel the pressure on their shoulders. Some even bent their knees, and nearly couldn't withstand the Buddhist light summoned by the swastika and fell to their knees. This monk from Earth was more powerful than anyone else in the domain of the gods, and many of the elders and new disciples were afraid. In the spiritual space, several of the elders present communicated telepathically with each other. This didn't make sense. They clearly remembered that the strongest person on Earth was currently only a venerated immortal. Apart from that, there was only one true venerated immortal cultivator. Furthermore, there was only one venerated immortal or true venerated immortal. Furthermore, that true venerated immortal had accidentally advanced by eating broccoli. The domain of the gods had been monitoring the situation on Earth, so they didn't think much of it at all. After all, there was indeed a certain probability that those above true immortal could enter this hidden realm. As for Immortal Jin Yuan, they weren't unfamiliar with this name. He belonged to a group of relatively primitive Earth cultivators, so they weren't too surprised that he had advanced to venerated immortal. So the question now was, where on Earth had this monk come from? Is there no one else in the domain of the gods? This poor monk hasn't used his full strength. At that moment, the monk faced the elders of the domain of the gods with a benevolent smile. Indeed, he hadn't used his full strength. The Buddhist light summoned by the swastika wasn't even 10% of its original strength. Who would have thought that some of the elders in front of him would actually be unable to withstand the pressure and would fall to their knees? This made the monk feel very disappointed. He couldn't help wanting to yawn in this kind of boring battle with such a huge disparity in battle strength. But as an eminent monk, Jin Deng still worked hard to maintain the qualities of a superior cultivator. Ever since he fought with Wang Ling, Tyrant felt that it was boring to fight with anyone. Every battle, no matter how big or small, was a process of accumulating experience. However, if a level 99 player were to fight against a bunch of level 5 trash, even if the experience gained was minimal, he would rather consume several hundred lifetimes of cultivation and let Wang Ling slap him a few more times. The monk never regretted his duel with Wang Ling. It could be said that Wang Ling had given him a wake-up call, letting him know that his realm wasn't the strongest, and that there was still room for improvement. In fact, what the monk was doing now was what Wang Ling had done to him back then. He wanted to wake up this group of self-absorbed self-cultivators from the domain of the gods. Monk, your realm is so strong, you could have come to the divine domain long ago. Why are you hiding in a place like Earth where there are scum cultivators everywhere? The Zhou clan's grand elder, Zhou Zhentian, was also shocked by the aura emitted by the monk. In particular, he recognized the swastika on the monk's left eye. This was a power that only the most holy Buddhist could possess. I travel the world. What does it have to do with you where I want to stay? The monk was speechless. He was extremely disappointed with the self-cultivators of the domain of the gods. In the spiritual space, the Zhou clan's grand elder Zhou Zhentian was frantically communicating with the other clan elders. I was wondering why the Wang family, the Gu family and the Lu family didn't send anyone over. It turns out that there's something fishy going on here. The juniors of these families all ran to Earth earlier. Now that I think about it, I'm afraid there really is something going on here. Who on earth is this monk? I'm not sure, but he's very strong. There are many people who cultivate Buddhism, but those who can derive this swastika can be counted on one hand. Even in the domain of the gods, I can only think of a few people who can do it. As he talked with the other clan elders, Zhou Zhentian's thoughts turned rapidly. He recalled the Dharma names of several eminent monks who had attained the Tao. Iron Spirit, Tong Hui, Yin Xian. The monk heard Zhou Zhentian's muttering. Oh. I didn't expect clan elder Zhou to have heard of these Dharma names. Hearing Zhou Zhentian say these names with his own ears, Jin Deng was a little surprised. That's right, monk. It's no big deal that you have the swastika. The 3 most holy Buddhists in our domain of the gods also have it. Zhou Zhintian sneered. What was so great about having only one most holy Buddhist on earth? Their domain of the gods had 3. However, hearing Zhou Zhintian's laughter, the monk couldn't help but laugh. He looked at Zhou Zhintian and sighed. This humble monk doesn't dare to lie to Clan Elder Zhou. To tell you the truth, the 3 Dharma names that Clan Elder Zhou mentioned are actually this humble monk's. This. How is this possible? Zhou Zhintian was shocked. The swastika name requires the power of reincarnation to cultivate. Iron Spirit was this humble monk's Dharma name during his 1000 reincarnations. Tong Hui was from 1001 to 1999. Yin Xian was from 2000 to 2999. As for Jin Dang, that's this humble monk's Dharma name now. As the monk explained, he bowed to Zhou Zhintian. So, the 3 Dharma names that Clan Elder Zhou mentioned, the 3 eminent monks, are actually all me. Moreover, didn't Clan Elder Zhou notice that these Dharma names are named after gold, silver, copper, and iron? They also have the meaning of reincarnation. This humble monk knows that Clan Elder Zhou and the other clan elders present have many questions in their hearts now. The monk sighed. However, this is the truth. Monk, don't go too far. Don't think that we won't beat you up just because you have the support of the realm king of the godly realm. At this moment, Zhou Zhintian shouted. The 7 clan elders present couldn't bear the monk's arrogance anymore. Take down this arrogant monk. In the next moment, the 7 clan elders in the meeting hall released their auras. With Zhou Zhintian in the lead, they all took out their Dharma artifacts, swords, knives, axes, and hammers. The scene of 7 Tao masters attacking together could be described as spectacular. The monk sighed in his heart. They were cultivators from the godly realm after all. They used world-defying Dharma artifacts, and they were of the highest grade. This was one of a kind. However, they were too naive to think that they could deal with him with such petty tricks. Put down the butcher's knife. The monk's face was as calm as an ancient well. He put his palms together. Buzz! In the sky, countless golden tentacles appeared out of thin air in the descending Buddhist light. These were the Buddhist tentacles of nothingness. They were summoned by the monk and had the divine power to disarm when he said, "Put down the butcher's knife." In fact, the clan elders had no experience in fighting with a Buddhist saint. They had just taken out their Dharma artifacts and were ready to attack. The Dharma artifacts in their hands were all swept away by these Buddhist tentacles. These Buddhist tentacles were incredibly fast. In the blink of an eye, they appeared around them and took away their Dharma artifacts. Then, they quickly dissipated and escaped into the Buddhist light with their Dharma artifacts. By the time they reacted, they were nowhere to be seen. F***ck. Instead of disarming, it was more like an open robbery. Zhou Zhintian was so angry that his whole body trembled. The 7 Tao masters were humiliated by a monk. Where would their dignity go? Everyone, this monk is strange. We can't fight separately. We have to gather our firepower. After Zhou Zhintian finished speaking, the other clan elders understood. They put their hands on the shoulders of the person in front of them and lined up in a row. They transferred their spiritual power through their bodies and finally gathered all their power on Zhou Zhintian, who was at the front of the line. This scene caused Ah Wan, who was standing at the side, to laugh hysterically. Monk. Are you playing an eagle-catching chicken game? The golden lamp and Zhou Zhintian were speechless. P.S. Reorganizing the realms, foundation establishment, golden core, nascent soul, soul formation, itinerant immortal, true venerable, venerable immortal, immortal sage, Tao venerable, Tao god, Tao ancestor. There may be more after Tao ancestor, I'll add more later, Wang Ling. Chapter 1287. He could only say that Miss Ah Wan was indeed Miss Ah Wan. As a realm king of the divine realm who was still growing, she could see through the truth at a glance. This made the monk deeply admire her. This eagle of his was indeed an eagle, but it wasn't the new and long eagle. The 7 great Tao masters led by Zhou Zhentian were indeed as weak as chicks in the monk's eyes. The scariest thing for cultivators was not knowing their own strength. The monk had already made this mistake once, so he naturally would not make it a second time. He was a sensible person. He knew how to reflect. He reflected on himself 3 times a day. This was the monk. However, not everyone had self-awareness and would reflect on themselves. Monk. Eat my cannon. The 7 great Tao masters lined up in a vertical line and poured all their psionic energy into Zhou Zhentian. They were condensing their magic power. The 6 of them put their hands on the shoulders of the person in front of them and leaned forward slightly, aiming at the monk. The monk instantly understood. These 7 people used the form of a train to turn into a very long cannon barrel. Rumble. The next moment, Zhou Zhentian, the leader of the Zhou family, opened his mouth wide, and countless dense psionic cannonballs exploded from his mouth. The monk was astonished by this novel move. He was not surprised because of how powerful this move was. Instead, he felt that these Tao masters from the divine realm were not people with normal brain circuits. How could they come up with such a strange move? But to be honest, it was still very lethal. The 7 great Tao masters gathered their psionic energy into one point, not only sharing the pressure of the consumption of psionic energy, but also making their power more concentrated. Elder Zhou Zhentian, who was the leader, turned into a giant abyss in the League of Legends. While leading the people behind him, he constantly began to spit at the monk. The psionic cannonballs were first released from Elder Zhou Zhentian's mouth, and then they instantly grew in size to the size of cannonballs. As the cannonballs passed, the space was torn apart, and countless cracks appeared. They bombarded the walls of the meeting hall, blasting out huge holes. Jin Dang, the power was there, but the scene was so beautiful that the monk did not dare to look at it. Beside him, Miss Ah Wan was completely dumbfounded from laughing. She held her stomach and rolled on the ground, laughing like a barbell. The monk did not expect the Tao masters from the divine realm to degenerate to such an extent. All they could think of was some fancy but useless move. What a bunch of fancy things. Tyrant easily dodged the bombardment while advancing forward. His body was surrounded by the Buddha's protective halo. His entire body lit up, making the crimson red moon Kasaya shine even more brilliantly. From the moment the Buddha's light appeared, dodging was no longer important. Tyrant took the cannons head-on. When the cannons hit his body, they were immediately dispersed by the body-protecting Buddha light and disappeared like a clay ox entering the sea. Monk. Don't look down on me. Zhou Zhentian still refused to admit defeat. He increased the speed of the psionic cannon in his mouth. At first it was 5 shots per second, but now it was 60 shots per second. Patriarch Zhou Zhentian felt like he had transformed into a human cannon. Old Zhou. Can you handle it? The other family elders were worried about Elder Zhou's condition. The 7 elders had come up with the move of the human body spiritual energy cannon together. Previously, Elder Zhou Zhentian's highest record was only 40 breaths in a second. They were worried that Elder Zhou Zhentian's throat wouldn't be able to hold on. This frequency was too fast. It was no different from stuffing a vibrator in one's throat. The next day, one's throat would definitely be hoarse and unable to speak. Don't give up. I can still do it. I must teach this monk a lesson. At that moment, Elder Zhou's eyes were already red with rage. He increased the frequency of his cannons once more. 70 shots per second. Anger once again stimulated Elder Zhou's body's potential. This attack speed was truly astonishing. At the same time, the extremely high rate of fire increased the power of the psionic cannon to a certain extent. But even so, it still couldn't break the Buddha's protective halo around the monk's body. At that moment, Death Heavenly Tao led Odd Zhua and Lotus Sun outside the Profound Path Great Hall. Because a fierce battle had broken out inside, the entire Profound Path Great Hall had been destroyed, so there was no longer any need to enter the hall to watch the battle. Is this a battle between cultivators from the domain of the gods? Lotus Sun was stupefied. Looking at the 7 great Tao venerables who were lined up in a row and crazily firing cannons, she couldn't help falling into deep thought. Little did she know that on the other side, Odd Joie and Death Heavenly Tao were also dumbfounded. This wasn't right. This was supposed to be a battle between cultivators from the domain of the gods. The destructive power was indeed fierce, but why did it look so silly? Senior Joie, may I ask, are they performing as human centipedes? The girl's small mouth was slightly agape, and it was hard for her to hide the shock and fear on her face. This was really too frightening. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to describe it as blinding dog eyes. Senior Death Heavenly Tao, what on earth is going on? Odd Joie also felt that something wasn't right. It was as if they had clearly entered a 4K theater, but were watching a watermark movie. Cultivators from the domain of the gods have a very unique way of thinking in battle. This is something that cultivators from Earth don't understand, so it's normal that you don't understand. Death Heavenly Tao cleared his throat as he did his best to explain the battle situation in front of him. After all, the domain of the gods was the birthplace of cultivation. As one of the Heavenly Tao little golden men, Death Heavenly Tao naturally shouldered the mission of protecting the domain of the gods and spreading cultivation culture. Then, Senior Death Heavenly Tao, why are they lining up? Asked Lotus Sunday. Look at the graceful postures of the 7 Tao masters. They put their hands on the shoulders of the person in front of them, and they're as nimble as snakes. This is a combination of swimming dragon out of the sea, and I'm afraid they found inspiration from the lion dance. Cultivation is such a simple subject. You have to find inspiration from the details of life to make breakthroughs easier, replied Death Heavenly Tao. I see. And the ball of spirit power they spit out. This is the performance art of the Tao Masters. They're using this form of magic to warn the world not to spit everywhere. Thus, it can protect the environment and warn the world. As expected of a senior, he can even explain things like this. Lotus Sun couldn't help muttering. What did you say? Nothing. In the golden Buddha lotus, Lotus Sun raised her hand again. Then why was their team scattered by Senior Golden Lamp? While the girl was speaking, in the almost destroyed conference hall of the profound Tao Palace, 7 Tao Masters were sent flying by Golden Lamp's Buddha's palm. The 7 Tao Masters instantly turned into ant-like black dots as they were thrown into the sky. Then, bang 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 bang, one by one, they fell to the ground, 1 pit for each Tao Master. 7 pits had been smashed in total. Death Heavenly Tao wiped at his sweat. This is the Tao Master paying tribute to the famous poet by Ji. As the saying goes, pearls of all sizes fall on a jade plate. The floor of the profound Tao Palace is like a jade plate. This is also the performance art of the Tao Masters. Hearing this, the girl fell silent. Then she asked one last question. But, why did all 7 elders vomit blood? Death Heavenly Tao put his forehead in his hand. He couldn't make it up anymore. Fuck. A plant. Chapter 1288. Death Heavenly Tao had never imagined that the God Realm's clan elder would have reached such a state of idiocy. It wasn't easy for him to bring people back to the God Realm. He had come to accept the influence of a higher level of cultivation culture, but in the end, he was directly invaded by the sand sculpture culture. However, the battle didn't seem to be over yet. Death Heavenly Tao had thought that if the 7 Tao Masters joined forces, they would at least be evenly matched with the Golden Lamp. In the end, it turned out to be a one-sided hammer blow. The monk had defeated 7 great Tao venerables with 1 palm. If news of this were to spread, the 7 families of the God Realm would lose all their faces. However, the monk didn't go all out. He still held back. Otherwise, 7 people. They all had to die. Apart from Tao ancestor Wang whose whereabouts were unknown, the only person in the world who could withstand the power of his palm was Ling Zhenren. And after a clear understanding of Wang Ling's strength, even if the monk wanted to fight, he would have to weigh the power of the backlash. It was easy for him to strike with his palm, but the damage from the backlash could paralyze half of his body. At this moment, the 7 Tao masters got up from the ground and wiped the blood from the corners of their mouths. The monk's palm strike actually made them vomit blood. This was something they had never expected. It was the first time for everyone present to exchange blows with a Buddhist sage. The monk's strength had far exceeded their imagination. "Monk, have you thought about the consequences?" Zhou Zhintian's body was trembling. He was angry, but more than that, he was trembling. His front teeth were broken when he hit the ground, and his mouth was full of blood. Apart from that, his internal injuries were also very serious. He didn't know how long it would take for him to recover. Don't be fooled by the fact that he could still speak. Before long, he would completely lose his voice. In the end, his throat still couldn't withstand the pressure of 70 breaths per second. This penniless monk's actions are also out of consideration for the divine realm. Tyrant glanced at the Tao venerables in front of him. "Elders, are you convinced? If not, I have other means." He wasn't joking. Based on his experience of 3,910 reincarnations, Tyrant had summed up tens of thousands of ways to torture the Tao master in front of him to a critical condition without being killed instantly. Of course, if he was stubborn. Forcibly transcending was not impossible. Things had come to this. Zhou Zhintian was very clear. He definitely wouldn't be able to beat him. Unless the patriarch made a move, there might be a glimmer of hope. The patriarchs of the 10 great clans in the god domain were all Tao gods. But how easy would it be to invite a Tao god to help? Currently, almost all of the patriarchs were in a state of closed-door cultivation, and it was impossible for them to easily come out and take action. Zhou Zhintian stared at the monk and felt like he was suffering in silence. If they couldn't stop this, the Earth's upgrade was already a done deal. The monk relied on his strength to do whatever he wanted, leaving them helpless. When did such a terrifying figure appear on Earth? Monk. If it wasn't for the fact that the patriarch is in seclusion, do you think you could have gotten away with it? Zhou Zhintian looked at the golden lamp. "I admit that I'm no match for you. If you have what it takes, let's spar." "Sparring?" The monk smiled. "I'll keep you company." At this time, the 7 Tao masters stepped forward. They were faced with a difficult problem. Take Earth's upgrade for example. A monk. Let me ask you, the god's domain is a high-level cultivation path. How did these miscellaneous cultivators on Earth walk it? In my opinion, there is no high or low cultivation path. There is no path to cultivation, but with people, there will be a path. Monk, you are a monk. Why do you want to fight for the Earth's cultivators? Tao Master is asking me a question. Are you arguing with me? The god's domain has been arrogant for a long time, and it shouldn't continue to fall. For the Tao Master to ask such a question, I can only lament its misfortune and be angry at its failure to fight. The Tao Masters have already asked me 2 questions. Can I ask you one? Let's hear it. A function y equals f, x, defined on R, if it satisfies f, x1, f, x2, /x1, x2 is 0 for any unequal real numbers x1 and x2, and x and y satisfy the inequality f, x, 2x, plus f, 2y, y, less than or equal to 0. If 0 is true, then when 1 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 4, the range of values for y/x is? Is it too difficult? The monk frowned. Do you know power functions? What about trigonometric and inverse trigonometric functions? You know a function of 1 degree, right? The 7 Tao masters shook their heads, dumbfounded. In the god's domain, they actually didn't pay much attention to math problems. The monk sighed helplessly. If you don't know anything, how can you be a Tao master? The corner of Zhou Zhintian's mouth twitched. Monk, we are reincarnating Tao. What kind of bullshit questions are you asking? Isn't the great Tao of mathematics a part of Tao? The monk smiled. He would never forget the scene of him vomiting blood after being electrocuted by the overwhelming number of functions when he had held Wang Ling's memory brick. the monk didn't want to experience this kind of pain a second time, and he decided to generously share this more painful experience. The pain of such a devilish thing alone was nothing compared to the pain of all. Monk, you are twisting words and forcing logic. A monk doesn't lie. These functions contain profound knowledge. If you can't even comprehend them, you won't be able to do anything. If you can't comprehend them, I can say with certainty that your realm will stop here and never improve. At that moment, the monk shook his head. He condensed the painful memory fragment from when he had touched the memory brick into a ball of spirit power in his palm. He then stared at the Tao masters in front of him. If you don't believe me, you can take a look at this poor monk's memory. The 7 Tao masters were skeptical and looked at each other for a while. In the end, it was Elder Zhou Zhentian who stood up. It's just a math problem, I don't believe it's so scary. Then, Zhou Zhentian directly stretched out his hand. The moment his fingertip touched the ball of spirit power, he instantly felt like he had been electrocuted. Not good. Elder Zhou hurriedly wanted to let go. But it was already too late. The terrible memory poured into his spiritual space, and in that instant, it was as if he had been struck by lightning. His whole body twitched wildly from the electricity. By the time the other Tao masters came back to their senses, Elder Zhou was already lying on the ground with his butt in the air. He stared at Elder Zhou, who had been charred black by the power of knowledge. The monk couldn't help sighing sympathetically. He swept his gaze over the people in front of him. And Lord Tao Master, do you want to try? Forget it, the remaining 6 Tao masters took a step back. Let's go back. At that moment, Death Heavenly Tao, who had witnessed the Tao discussion with Odd Zhua and Lotus Sun outside the temple, felt very helpless. They couldn't beat him, and had suffered because of their lack of culture. The domain of the gods had indeed declined. In the golden Buddha lotus, the girl was also greatly disappointed. That's it? Death Heavenly Tao smiled bitterly. Whether it's on earth or in the domain of the gods, studying hard is never wrong. Chapter 1289. The martial battle and the civil battle ended with the 7 great Tao masters crushing defeat. They could slowly cultivate if they couldn't win, but as a big shot in the divine territory, it was a bit unreasonable for them to suffer a loss because they were uncultured. However, the monk knew very well that this matter wasn't over yet. The 7 great Tao masters were still struggling. Because they still had one last hope. That was to invite the clan masters of the 7 great clans. The Wang family, Gu family, and Lu family, these 3 leaders definitely couldn't be counted on. However, Zhou Zhentian felt that there was still room to turn the situation around as long as one of the remaining 7 families could come forward. So while the civil battle was going on, the 7 great Tao masters were secretly communicating with the leaders who were in seclusion. They hoped that one of them could act on their behalf and help them. There was no need to kill the monk, as long as they could make the monk retreat in the face of difficulties and protect the interests of the divine territory. And in the face of such a small trick, the monk still had a smile on his face. His heart was as clear as a mirror. Whether it was a civil battle or a martial battle, that was all Zhou Zhentian's trick to stall for time. Monk, this is the last wave. If you can withstand the Tao God's will, we won't interfere in the matter of upgrading the earth. Zhou Zhentian flung his sleeves and laughed wildly as he spoke. Just a second before the Zhou family's grand elder spoke, the Zhou family's leader had already communicated with him. They retreated to the side of the profound Tao palace, intending to watch the show. No matter how strong this monk was, could he be stronger than a Tao god? They didn't believe it. In this world, other than Tao ancestor Wang, the Tao god realm could be said to be the god realm that was second only to one and above all. When a Tao god descends, no one can compare. Hey, why do you want to die for no reason? At this moment, Miss Awan, who was watching from the crowd side. Zhou Zhentian, who retreated to the side, was in a good mood. Lord Realm King, why don't you persuade the master to leave quickly? The Tao God's will hasn't descended yet, there's actually still room for redemption. If he gets injured here and loses his cultivation, we won't care. This is indeed a suicidal behavior. Hearing this, Miss Awan rolled her eyes at Zhou Zhintian and silently shook her head. She said suicidal, but she didn't mean the monk. People without self-awareness were indeed terrifying. In the shattered Profound Doctrine Grand Hall, Tyrant raised his head and looked at the sky at a 45 degrees angle. He could see that the originally cloudless skies of the God domain were suddenly shrouded by countless white clouds. These white clouds gradually separated into a blood-red color and turned into blood vessels before finally condensing into the shape of a brain. The Tao God's brain has appeared, and its will is about to come and claim it. The 7 great Tao venerables looked up at the sky. Currently, the sky above the entire God's domain was dyed with a gloomy blood-red color, giving off an incomparably dense pressure. The powerful mental pressure was only at the initial stage, but it had already formed a blood-stained sky and a trembling earth. Tao God will. Oh no, I'm too late. Death Heavenly Tao frowned. This pressure made it difficult for him to breathe. Helpless, he could only open his inner world and take in Audjua, who had touched the Buddha Golden Lotus, as well as Lotus Sun to protect them. What's wrong, Senior? Audjua didn't understand what on earth was going on. I didn't expect the Tao sovereign to summon the Tao God's will. And it must be the Zhou clan's patriarch. Death Heaven frowned. When the Tao God will descended, the entire space of the God domain would be sealed, making it impossible to leave or enter. He had wanted to leave with Audjua and Lotus Sun, but he was still too late. There was no doubt that the Tao God's power was strong. None of the 6 main heavenly Tao was a match for the Tao God. One could only imagine how strong it was. We have to get far away. Death Heavenly Tao subconsciously distanced itself from the Profound Path Hall when it sensed this extraordinary mental pressure. This Tao God will was coming from Monk Jin Deng in the center of the Profound Path Hall. The main pressure was concentrated there, and the surrounding area was only affected by the Tao God will's radiation. Thus, the further away they were, the less pressure there was. Ahahaha. Monk. Come and transcend. Aren't you very capable? If you're capable, then transcend this Tao God will. Zhou Zhintian, the Zhou clan's grand elder, couldn't stop laughing. He had tolerated the monk for a long time. Now that the Tao God will was about to arrive, he could already imagine the scene of the monk getting beaten up. In the Profound Path Hall, the monk silently turned the prayer beads in his hand. He stared at the sky that was dyed red with blood. The brain of the Tao God that was formed from the clouds was becoming clearer and clearer in his line of sight, almost condensing into a solid substance. This enormous brain of the Tao God seemed to fill the entire sky of the divine realm. Countless spiritual energy was absorbed by it, and then it bloomed from within, emitting an immortal sound that shook one's heart. This was the sound of the heavens breathing. And the will of the Tao God was the will of the heavens. It is indeed a powerful force. The monk looked at this scene, his heart as calm as still water. Compared to the 7 great Tao sovereigns, this kind of power was barely enough. Monk, are you still not going to make a move? Are you so scared that you don't dare to move? Zhou Zhintian reprimanded. The formation of this Tao God will require a certain amount of time. If it was finally formed, its power would be at its strongest. The best way to stop the will of the Tao God was to make a move before it was completely formed and destroy the brain of the Tao God in the sky. However, it was not an easy task to defeat the brain of the Tao God. The monk did not make a move, which confused Zhou Zhintian. He felt that the monk was most likely scared silly. Otherwise, how could he miss such a good opportunity? In the center of the Profound Tao Hall, the monk silently chanted Buddhist scriptures. He waited for about 3 minutes. Then, he suddenly raised his head. Facing the brain of the Tao God in the sky, he stretched out his hand. The moment the monk stretched out his hand, it grew bigger and bigger. His palm was filled with spiritual energy, and he fiercely slapped the brain of the Tao God. This hand stretched for hundreds of kilometers, and it seemed to be able to cover the entire world. Is this monk crazy? No. He did it on purpose. This monk is not afraid of the Tao God at all. Oh my God! Who is this monk? At this moment, the 7 great Tao sovereigns finally understood why the monk did not make a move. He was not scared out of his wits. Instead, he was waiting on purpose. Until the Tao God will finally formed, and when the spiritual pressure was at its peak, he made his move. To fight against the will of the Tao God. The monk's ability to resist the will of the Tao God with one hand shocked everyone present. The brain of the Tao God sensed the disobedience in front of it and instantly released a powerful divine lightning. Rumble. In an instant, the sky surged like a silver snake, as if it wanted to shatter the monk's hand that was wrapped around the brain of the Tao God. It's useless. The monk shook his head. When the divine lightning struck his palm, it felt like it was tickling him. He didn't take a mere Tao God's will seriously at all. He knew. When Tao ancestor Wang became a Tao God, he was by his side. That scene of the tribulation, heaven and earth were disobedient, space disintegrated, and everything was distorted by a powerful force, like a fried dough twist, like the beginning of the universe. The monk had witnessed such a grand scene with his own eyes. He really did not care about the will of the Tao God. Disperse. In the next moment, the monk gradually closed his 5 fingers. As long as he crushed the brain of the Tao God, everything would be resolved. However, at this moment, suddenly, another brain of the Tao God appeared in the sky. It stood side by side with the brain that the monk was about to grab. The head of the Li family also made a move. At this moment, a Tao sovereign cried out. The head of the Li family's Tao God hadn't fully formed yet. But it was rare to see 2 brains of the Tao God side by side against a common enemy. All the cultivators in the domain of the gods were dumbfounded. Who on earth was it? To attract the attention of 2 Tao gods. To have 2 Tao gods join forces to resist it. In an instant, the mental pressure in the world increased. But the monk remained calm in the face of this scene. 2 brains of the Tao God. The monk raised his eyebrows. After confirming that the Gu, Wang, and Lu families wouldn't make a move, that was to say, the remaining 7 Tao gods could join the battle at any time. The monk could still control the current situation. But if all 7 Tao gods joined in, he might not be able to hold on. After all, the monk had already lost 3,000 lifetimes of cultivation in his previous battle with Wang Ling. With his remaining cultivation of 910 lifetimes, fighting 3 was already his limit. If there were more, he would need Ling Zhenren's help. But the monk didn't panic. Because he had already sensed that the strongest man on earth was already paying attention to this place. He was watching the screen, ready to make a move if necessary. This poor monk will do his best to deal with this myself. The monk sighed in his heart and opened his palm a little wider. At the same time, he covered the 2 brains of the Tao God. Then, like those old men in the park who played with walnuts, he turned them around. He pinched the 2 brains of the Tao God in his palm and spun them around. The 2 brains of the Tao God in the monk's palm rubbed and spun like a washing machine, making a gurgling sound. This scene made Miss Awan laugh so hard that she rolled around on the ground. It was still that incomparably demonic, barbell-like laughter. Chapter 1290. The scene of the monk fighting the 2 Tao gods stunned all the cultivators in the god realm. For a moment, their spiritual senses formed a sea, and countless gazes converged on the profound doctrine hall. Although few cultivators dared to approach the core area of the Tao god's will, they still used their spiritual senses to observe the battle from afar. The monk held up the sky with one hand, toying with the 2 Tao gods' will in the palm of his hand. This made countless cultivators in the god realm incredulous. Even the cultivators living in seclusion in the deep mountains and forests of the god realm raised their heads, alarmed by this powerful aura. Countless spiritual birds flew out of the forest in surprise. They chirped and covered the entire sky. It created a magical scene as if night had fallen. This is a cultivator from Earth? When did such a person appear on Earth? Buddhism was holy, terrifyingly powerful. Obviously, the two patriarchs of the Zhou and Li families didn't expect the monk to be so powerful. Boom! At this moment, there was a loud noise, and the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The monk's giant hand that was holding the two Tao gods' brains broke free. In the sky that was shrouded in blood, a giant hoof print of a prehistoric beast appeared, charging towards the monk's palm like a mountain. The beast had a giant horn on its head, and its face was ferocious. Its body erupted with heavenly lightning brought by the Tao god's will, surrounded by black lightning. This was a creature summoned by the two Tao gods' brains in order to escape. Even a divine beast has appeared. Many experts in the god realm exclaimed, shocked by the scene in front of them. Rumor had it that the 7 Tao gods all had their own divine beasts. At first, they extracted the power of chaos to breed an egg. After tens of thousands of years of incubation and a lot of effort to cultivate it, it had today's combat power. Although the two Tao gods' wills had arrived together, they were still fighting separately. They didn't expect the monk to capture them so quickly. In order to escape, they chose to summon it together. This mixed Yuan sky horn was raised by the Zhou family's patriarch. At the same time, the two Tao gods' wills knew that this summoned divine beast could only help them for a short period of time. The monk was too powerful, he was stronger than they had imagined. Now that they had summoned it, it was to buy time for the Li family's patriarch's wills to take shape. A divine beast born from chaos, the monk was silent. He actually had one too. However, his mythological beast was still in the shape of an egg. It had been incubated for almost 300 times, but it still hadn't hatched. At this moment, the Zhou family head's chaos origin heavenly horn beast charged toward his palm with a hoof print the size of a mountain. This scene alarmed everyone in the god domain. The monk didn't even put it in his eyes. He used the back of his hand to slap the divine beast away. Rumble. With a loud bang, a rift tens of thousands of feet long appeared in the sky. Everyone thought that this mixed Yuan sky horn beast might be of some use. Who knew that this beast would be sent back to the chaos by the monk with a single palm strike? This monk is too terrifying. The powerhouses of the realm of the gods sighed inwardly. This was a real fight between immortals. Lotus Sun and Odd Zhuo were already dumbstruck. Senior Golden Lamp, you're amazing. Lotus Sun had long known that the monk was very strong and not an ordinary person. However, the concept of power was very vague. Now that he was there, he had personally witnessed the famous scene of the monk fighting against two Tao gods and slapping the divine beasts away with a backhand. For a moment, Lotus Sun's thoughts ran wild, and she truly felt the terror and shock that transcended dimensional power. The head of the Zhou family had long known that the chaos origin heavenly horn beast wouldn't be able to hold out for long. But as soon as it appeared, it was sent back by the monk with a single palm strike. This was something that the head of the Zhou family had never expected. Fortunately, the will of the Tao god from the head of the Li family had quickly taken shape in this short period of time. Now, 2 fully formed Tao god brains had descended into the sky and joined forces to fight the monk. This made the monk's expression turn a little more serious. His palm once again blossomed with boundless Buddhist light. Countless Buddhist seals crawled along his fingers and covered his entire arm. Infinite Buddhist seal. This was one of the monk's trump cards. When the Buddhist seal covered his entire arm, it could greatly increase his fighting strength. Now, he infused all of the Buddhist seals into his right hand. Condense power. It became the true Buddha's palm. The monk's palm grew a little more as he grabbed at the 2 Tao god brains. A swastika symbol appeared in his palm. The swastika seal suppressed everything. The scene was like a comet crashing into the mind of every spectator. The monk had a clear assessment of his fighting strength. Not to mention 2 Tao god brains. Even the complete form of 3 would not be able to withstand one of his palms. If not for the fact that he had lost 3,000 lifetimes of cultivation, the 10 Tao gods would not be a match for him. However, at this moment, 2 more explosions rang out in the sky. Another new Tao god had joined. And there were 2 of them. Countless people were shocked. The head of the Wu family and the head of the Zhao family have also joined. Retreat. The 7 great Dao sovereigns were shocked. They were extremely close to the battlefield. The wills of the 2 Dao gods attacked the core area of the profound Dao Hall. They could barely withstand the radiation. However, the arrival of the 4 Dao gods, they already had a premonition that they would not be able to withstand it. If the wills of the Wu family and the Zhao family were fully formed, even if they were Dao sovereigns, if they were too close to the core area, they would be unable to move like toads. Buzz. The 4 Dao gods had descended. The terrifying mental pressure caused the god domain to split apart. With the profound Dao Hall as the center, the ground there split open on the spot and extended for thousands of miles. Powerful psionic energy spread out. It was an unstoppable force that destroyed everything in its surroundings. The monk smiled bitterly in his heart. He did not expect that he would be able to force out the 4 Dao gods. The scene was gradually getting out of control. You've gone too far. Right at this moment, a pure and holy feather tore through the air and pierced through the sky. As the feather shuttled through the air, it grew larger at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the end, it turned into an astonishing feather sword that slashed at the brain of the Dao god. It came from the west side of the profound Dao Hall. It was Miss Awan who had joined the battle. The monk saw the young girl flapping the wings behind her and soaring into the sky with her petite body. She did not fear the pressure of the 4 Dao gods at all. She used her divine will to control the feather sword and slashed in the air. It emitted a terrifying divine aura. Countless angel feathers drifted down from the sky like falling rain. Realm King of the God Realm. This is a battle of the cultivation world. Are you going to interfere? Bang! The sound of the Dao god that caused one's mind to ripple rang out from all directions. Just the sound wave of the Dao god dispersed the young girl's sword ray. As it was too chaotic and ethereal, no one could tell which family head it was. I'm here to mediate. Don't think that the 4 of you are having a good time now. You might have to pay the price later. Miss Awan reminded them kindly. The young girl's attitude was already very clear. Compared to the Dao gods of the God realm, she did not want to offend the man who was peeping on earth. She was also considering whether to interfere at this time. She knew her own strength. Before she became the myriad-winged god, she could not possibly be a match for these Dao gods. In fact, she could not help the monk at all. However, Miss Awan was also very clear. These Dao gods did not dare to attack her. Otherwise, if a war of the gods broke out, the god realm would not be able to withstand it. To deal with a monk, the 4 Dao gods had come down. This was something that none of the god realm cultivators had expected. Normally, the patriarchs of these large families would not easily show themselves. If the monk died in this battle, it would be a legendary battle. Was it too much? It seemed rather too much, but what no one could have expected was that there was still more to come. Not long after Miss Awan, World King of the God Realm, kindly reminded them. 3 more Dao gods joined the battle. They came from the AI family, the Chu family and the Xing family. Now, the 7 Dao gods had come down. Apart from the Gu family, the Wang family and the Lu family, the heads of the other 7 families had all made their moves. Do you want to compete with this poor monk to see who is more excessive? The monk asked. So what? The Dao god's voice echoed. The 7 Dao gods had made their stance very clear. It was fine if they didn't make a move, but since they made a move, they had to kill the monk. At that moment, the monk stared at the scene in the sky where the 7 Dao gods had come down and laughed bitterly in his heart. Ling Zhenren, you can make your move now. If you don't, this poor monk will really have to meet Buddha. As soon as the monk said that, in the God realm, a hand that could envelop the entire God realm. It stretched out from an inexplicable direction. And joined the battle. With just a middle finger, it pierced through the Dao god's brain of the Zhou family. Chapter 1291. In the forbidden area, Head Zhou spat out blood on the spot. He had no time to react to what had happened. He had used the will of a Tao god to condense the brain. In an instant, a huge hole had been made in it. The pain of the backlash from the brain's forcible disintegration was reflected back on him. Just this one blow had cost him 100 lifetimes of cultivation. Seclusion had been for nothing. Damn it, Head Zhou stood up. His Tao god body released spirit qi to condense a spirit fog to heal his injuries. Not long after. Boom. Bam. The Zhou family's patriarch's aura surged once again. Some spirit talismans with primal chaos crawled all over his body. They were extremely dense. At this crucial moment, the Zhou family's patriarch condensed his own Tao God seal and covered his entire body with it. No one can challenge the supreme domain of the gods. This Tao God seal, which contained his 200 lifetimes of cultivation, was all his dignity. Powerful spirit power spread out, and Head Zhou's body glowed. The ground in the depths of the Zhou family's forbidden area shook. Head Zhou stopped condensing his Tao God will, and decided to break out of the formation and fight in person. However, just as he was about to move, a figure flashing with the light of Buddha descended from the sky with his bald head down. The monk was here. Like a golden meteorite falling from the universe, he bluntly smashed Head Zhou's head with his fist, then turned into a streak of fire as he charged toward the Zhou family's forbidden area. After a huge explosion that shook the earth and the mountains, a huge explosion occurred. The monk's smooth forehead hit Head Zhou's skull. The two heads collided, and Head Zhou's skull split open on the spot. He directly fainted. As expected of a Tao god. First he suffered Ling Jinren's backlash, then you smashed his head, but he didn't die. Miss Awan followed behind the monk like a little attendant. She crouched next to Head Zhou's corpse and pinched his shoehorn face. Wow! A Tao god's face is so soft. Jin Deng. So, do you want to stab him? At that moment, Miss Awan took out her feather sword, and golden angel feathers floated in the air over the Zhou family's forbidden area. No need. The monk shook his head. I didn't plan to kill him. Miss Awan was shocked. Then why are you so ruthless? Tyrant said, this strength is just right. It can make him unconscious for a while, but not kill him. Miss Awan said, but I still don't understand, monk, why did you hit him? Jin Deng shook his head and laughed in spite of himself. I'm saving him. If I don't knock him out, rushing out would be courting death. That makes sense. Awan was suddenly enlightened. At this moment, in the god domain, all the cultivators were stunned. Which patriarch has joined the battle? The 7 great Tao gods were alarmed by this hand. This was because they could clearly feel that the otherworldly hand didn't come directly from the divine realm. They condensed their own Tao god wills to explore the area. In the end, he was surprised to find that the extraterrestrial hand actually came from Earth. It actually came from so far away. The remaining 6 Tao gods were shocked. Isn't that monk the number 1 figure on Earth? Where did the owner of this pair of hands come from? The conversation of the 6 great Tao gods made the monk, who was in the forbidden area of the Zhou family, smile. The number 1 figure on Earth? He had never said that before. Wang Ling had disintegrated Patriarch Zhou's Tao god brain with just his middle finger. This was something that no one had ever expected. In the sky, the remaining 6 Tao god brains had all condensed into form. Even without Patriarch Zhou, when the wills of the 6 Tao gods gathered together, they still burst out with world-shaking spiritual pressure. The 6 brains of the Tao god were like 6 divine suns, hanging high in the sky. Is this expert on Earth not going to show his true form? A voice rang out in the god domain again. The tone was flat, but it was deafening. Very quickly, the virtual bodies of the 6 Tao gods appeared in the sky. These were virtual images formed by the Tao gods' Tao wills. Their faces couldn't be seen clearly, but they were connected to the souls of the 6 Tao gods. They were waiting. At that moment, the otherworldly hand in front of them scattered into a vast expanse of light particles that sprinkled in the god domain. When the light particles gathered again, they formed Wang Ling's figure. After all, the 6 Dao ancestors hadn't shown themselves in their true forms, and Wang Ling couldn't be bothered to do so. Since they had also condensed a virtual image of their wills to meet each other, Wang Ling could already be considered the greatest courtesy he could offer. Although they also couldn't see the virtual image of Wang Ling's will clearly. The 6 Dao gods could sense that this was the figure of a young man. Its classmate Wang Ling. Lotus Sun could also tell. She hadn't seen Wang Ling's face, but she had recognized his silhouette from the virtual image's back. First, he had appeared to destroy a Dao god brain, then appeared as a virtual image, intending to fight 6 gods alone. Wang Ling's strength was beyond the girl's imagination. Was classmate Wang Ling born this powerful? Lotus Sun gazed at the confrontation between the immortals in the sky, and the expression on her face could no longer be described as astonishment. Ling Jinren's strength can't just be described as powerful. Deaf Heavenly Dao gasped in amazement at the scene in front of them. It couldn't help recalling those primitive times. At that moment, Wang Ling's figure seemed so familiar, yet so strange. In the next moment, the virtual images of the 6 Dao gods attacked simultaneously. They moved horizontally at an incredible speed, shrinking the ground to inches as they shuttled through space. One forward and one backward, they covered a distance of 10,000 zhang. A silver stripe attacked from a tricky angle and locked onto Wang Ling's virtual image. Got him. With the shout of one of the family heads, the other 5 Dao gods instantly closed in from all directions. They collided with Wang Ling with their virtual bodies, and their killing intent was clear. Boom! The virtual images collided and the world shook. The vast will of the Dao gods engulfed the entire domain of the gods, which was instantly enveloped in an overwhelming pressure. The cultivators of the domain of the gods could no longer bear it. Some hid in their inner worlds, while others directly chose to flee. They're actually using virtual images to set up a trap. In the sky, after the virtual images collided, they were instantly enveloped in an invisible spirit fog. Deaf Heavenly Dao's cultivation couldn't break through the Dao God's spirit fog. But they could already see some clues. The Dao Gods had used their virtual images to set up a trap. They looked like they were recklessly charging at Wang Ling's virtual images, but in fact, this was a joint sealing technique. The virtual images carried part of the power of their Dao God seals. Using several lifetimes' worth of cultivation, each of them could condense a powerful sealing force. After the virtual image trap collided with Wang Ling's virtual image, the power of the Dao God seal spread like a crawling insect, instantly covering Wang Ling's virtual image and erupting with dazzling divine light. The runes gathered by every Dao God seal are 10,000 trillion in weight. This is why. The weight of a god. The 6 Dao gods were even more pleased with themselves. They hadn't expected it to be so easy to suppress. After all, this was the weight of a god. It was impossible for anyone to break free. But in the next moment, Wang Ling twisted his shoulders. He stomped his foot. The Dao God seals that were binding the illusionary image were like fish scales that had been cut off, instantly disintegrating. They were shaken to pieces. Just for a moment. The battle was over. In the sky, the brains of the 6 Dao gods dissipated into nothingness. The oppressive red clouds instantly dispersed, and the sun shone brightly in a cloudless sky. Bam 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 bam, the 6 Dao gods were shaken to the point of vomiting blood in their respective families' forbidden areas. But the battle wasn't over yet. What greeted the 6 Dao gods next was the monk's head hammer that fell from the sky. The monk had already split himself into 6 clones and aimed them at the family forbidden areas of the 6 Dao gods. He planned to kill them one at a time. This would completely cut off the possibility of these Dao gods counterattacking. Chapter 1292. In the profound Dao Hall, the monk and Miss Awan each carried a few of them, piling up the 7 Dao gods' corpses like a human pyramid. After the monk's east wind, 100% blood lock knockout, 10,000 Li head hammer technique. The 7 Dao gods became like this, and they were still in a state of unconsciousness until now. Blood mixed with yellow liquid flowed out. Miss Awan noticed that it was flowing out of the head of the Zhou family. Of the 7 Dao gods, the head of the Zhou family was the most miserable. It was also a backlash, but only Patriarch Zhou's Dao god brain had been directly pierced by Wang Ling's finger. In other words, the damage from the backlash had been maxed out. After suffering from the most severe backlash and the monk's head hammer, the bones in his head were fractured. In other words, of the 7 Dao gods, only the head of the Zhou family had been split open. Monk, don't tell me it's his brain. Miss Awan frowned and asked, pinching her nose. Don't worry, Miss Awan. This is a Dao god, he won't die if his brain drips out. Jin Deng's face was kind. Also, it will only benefit him. Monk, what do you mean? The brain that's flowing out now might be the water that flowed out of his head when he chose to attack. The monk sighed deeply. How could the heads of the Wang, Gu, and Lu families be so clear about this? Wouldn't it be fine if they just went into seclusion? Their cultivation wasn't high enough, but they still had to intervene. That was great. With the backlash, the head of the Zhou family had lost 100 lifetimes of cultivation. Of course, the other heads weren't much better. On average, the 7 Dao ancestors had 80 lifetimes. The Lu family was ranked 10th among the top 10 families of the domain of the gods. After this wave, the head of the Lu family would probably replace the Zhou family and leap to 3rd place. The monk could almost imagine the way the head of the Lu family couldn't help laughing in the forbidden area. Now, the situation was set. After the 7 Dao gods were beaten up, it was a foregone conclusion that Earth would level up. Elders, please come out. The monk turned the prayer beads in his hand and glanced in one direction without looking up. Master. Several Dao masters walked out of the ruins and trembled at the scene in front of them. They would never have imagined that such a scene would occur. Jin Deng took out a contract from his sleeve. All of you are clan elders. Right now, your clan heads are obviously unable to move. All of you will act as representatives and sign the contract with your blood. Sign it. After the signature is completed, it will be considered that you have agreed to the plan to upgrade Earth, and you can take away the corpse of a family head as a reward. The Dao Master's mouths twitched. It was obvious that he had no other choice. Their patriarch's injuries were very serious. If they continued to delay, there might be some trouble. Losing one more lifetime of cultivation meant that their family's heritage would decrease by a bit. They could not afford such a loss. Let me go first. No. Don't fight with me. Let me sign first. My family's patriarch's injuries are the most serious. Bullshit. The head of the Xing family was the one who suffered the most. Can't you see that his neck has sunk into his collarbone? Then, the 7 Dao masters began to fight over the contract. The monk could not help but sigh inwardly at this scene. If he had known that this would happen, he would not have done it in the first place. Just like that, it dragged on for another hour. The 7 great Dao venerables fought for the right to sign first, and they fought again on the spot before they finished signing. When they returned to the clan's land with their respective family heads, they were all bruised and swollen. Take care, everyone. When your patriarch wakes up, remember to tell him that the monk was the one who hit him, and it had nothing to do with me. Miss Awan waved her hand as she watched the elders leave. At this point, the preparations for upgrading Earth were ready. The monk put away the contract and was about to go back when a stream of light suddenly descended from the sky. To the monk's surprise, this person did not dress like a clan elder, but seemed to be just an old servant. But this old servant's combat strength was surprisingly strong. He had actually reached the level of an upper Dao master. It should be noted that the 7 clan elders who had attacked just now were Grand Clan elders. Most of them were just low-level Dao masters, and the strongest Zhou clan elder was a middle-level Dao master. The monk turned the Buddha beads and deduced the old servant's origin. Are you from the Wang clan? Greetings, Master Jin Deng. Master's foresight is divine, I admire you. The servant looked peaceful, and he did not come to the pottery shelf this time. After all, the Wang clan, Gu clan, and Lu clan were all understanding people, and were not as itchy as the remaining 7 clans. As he spoke, the servant also took out a contract from his lapel. This was the joint agreement of the 3 patriarchs of the Wang clan, Gu clan, and Lu clan, personally stamped with the patriarch's seal. Now this old servant of the Wang clan sent it on their behalf. The old man presented the joint contract with both hands, and at the same time, he looked apologetic. When the 7 patriarchs fought earlier, the 3 patriarchs did not help you. I hope you can understand. I don't mind. The monk smiled. The most taboo when in seclusion is to have your mind shaken. There is a reason why the Gu clan and the Wang clan have been the top 2 in the god realm for so many years. I would also like to thank the 3 patriarchs for sending me this joint contract to show my sincerity. This old man admires the master's bearing. After saying that, the old man looked around again. The monk knew who he was looking for. Ling Jinren has already left. It's a pity that I wasn't able to meet Ling Jinren. The old man sighed. He had killed the Zhou clan's Dao god as soon as he appeared, and then defeated 6 Dao gods with just the power of a virtual body. What kind of terrifying power was this? When the patriarch of the Wang family had stamped the joint contract, he had specially told the old man that if he saw Ling Jinren, he must greet him. But now, it seemed that the time had yet to come. In the end, some things couldn't be forced. Although Ling Jinren has left, he left something for me to give to the 3 patriarchs, and I hope you can deliver it on my behalf. At that moment, the monk's words made the old man's eyes light up. Ling Jinren actually left something behind? What is it? In fact, this was also this poor monk's suggestion. The monk smiled. The 3 patriarchs are still in seclusion and haven't made a move from beginning to end. Thus, this poor monk believes that the remaining 7 big clans won't let the matter rest. If they join forces to retaliate now, I'm afraid it will be another disaster. You're right, master. The old servant of the Wang family nodded. Thus, I had Ling Jinren leave behind 3 golden talismans. As the monk spoke, his fingertips moved, and 3 streams of light flowed out from between his fingers to hit the old servant's hand in front of him. The old servant's hands trembled as he gripped the golden talismans. Dare I ask, master, how do I use these golden talismans? The monk smiled. If you run into trouble, shout, quickly go and invite my Buddha Wang Ling. That'll do. Chapter 1293. In the distance, Death Heavenly Tao, who had yet to leave the domain of the gods, didn't know what to say to describe his current mood. Senior, will the 7 families who attacked really attack us again after being beaten so badly? Lotus Sun asked the Buddha's golden lotus. In the domain of the gods, apart from the Gu family and the Wang family who often take turns in first and second place, the rankings of the other 8 families change more or less every year. When the gap between them isn't too big, there's no way for them to truly stabilize their rankings, Death Heavenly Tao said. Even if the 7 families don't attack the Wang and Gu families, I'm afraid they'll join forces to settle accounts with the Lu family, which is ranked 10th. The Lu family was the only one who had gotten off easy in this incident. The foundations of the 7 families couldn't catch up to the Wang and Gu families to begin with, so they didn't really have much of an impact on them. But after this battle, their foundations had been shaken. This was equivalent to shortening the gap between the Lu family and the 7 families. In order to prevent the Lu family from taking advantage of the chaos to rise to power, it was very likely that the 7 families would join forces to seek revenge. Furthermore, they would only pick on the weak. Can the heavenly Tao punish Tao gods? Jua asked curiously at that moment. Except for the whitelist users and Tao ancestors, no one can stand above the heavenly Tao. Death Heavenly Tao sighed. I can't fight Tao gods now, mainly because the power of the heavenly Tao has been divided. If we 3,000 heavenly Tao combine, we can hang Tao gods up. Then can you hang my Shifu up and beat him up? No. I might be killed instead. Death Heavenly Tao was helpless. In fact, he had always had a bold guess. That was, the power Wang Ling had shown so far might not be his full strength. Back then, Tao Ancestor had divided the heavenly Tao into 3,000 heavenly Tao for nothing more than a balance of power. If there were other Ling Zhenren in this universe's parallel space, then when all these Ling Zhenrens combined, how strong would they be? But all of this was Death Heavenly Tao's guess and hypothesis. He didn't dare think about it any further. One Wang Ling was already enough to throw the heavenly Tao into chaos. If all the Wang Lings in the space were combined, wouldn't the entire heavenly Tao be exterminated? On the way back to Earth, Death Heavenly Tao found the girl frantically entering information in her little notebook. It looked like the harvest from the god's domain this time was quite great. What did you comprehend? Death Heavenly Tao asked. The seniors of the domain of the gods are indeed very strong, and their train of thought is very novel, Lotus Sun answered honestly. She recorded everything she saw in words, and then used her drawing tablet to record what she saw to prevent herself from forgetting. Junior sister Lotus Sun can actually draw? In the core world of Death Heavenly Tao, Zhuo was also amazed as he held the Buddha Golden Lotus. In a sense, the girl was very versatile in all aspects. I just picked it up randomly when I had nothing to do, Lotus Sun said modestly. A friendly reminder, junior sister Lotus Sun, if you draw my Shifu's face on it, there's a high chance it'll turn into a mosaic. Zhuo said at that moment. The great shielding spell had been upgraded several times, and its shielding effect had become even stronger. Who knew what would happen in the end? Don't worry, Senior Zhuo, I didn't draw classmate Wang Ling's face at all. Look. This is what I drew. Lotus Sun made her painting public. She was drawing a scene of Wang Ling's virtual image fighting against the virtual images of the 6 great Tao gods. Virtual images couldn't be seen clearly to begin with. So the girl had only drawn the outline of Wang Ling's back. Then, she had drawn an ellipsis on his head. This is? Zhuo was stunned. This is classmate Wang Ling's real body. Lotus Sun stared at her painting and nodded with satisfaction. Zhuo, after the matter of Earth's upgrade was settled, Golden Lamp and Miss Awan returned to Earth before Death Heavenly Tao did. The monk's ability to shrink the Earth into inches was too heaven-defying, and was several times faster than Death Heavenly Tao's direct teleportation. Their next step was to go to Battle Sect and explain to Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal the matter of Earth's upgrade. When the time came for Earth to complete its upgrade, the whole of Earth would experience a terrifying tribulation. That was right, this wasn't a tribulation for cultivators. It was a tribulation for Earth. Earth needed to weather this tribulation before it could complete its upgrade. At that moment, all the team leaders had gathered in Battle Sect's True Venerate Hall. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Immortal Jinyuan, Fang Xing and Crispy Noodles Tao Monarch of the security team were all present. The power of Divine Tao Star's Divine Crystal is extraordinary, so it's very easy to upgrade Earth. But whether or not Earth can withstand the heavenly tribulation is another question, said Miss Awan. What's a planet's heavenly tribulation like? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was puzzled. Most people actually didn't know much about this. Because almost no one had experienced a planet's tribulation before, the only person who might know was Immortal Jinyuan. He had been working on repairing Drought Star. Because of the complexity and scale of the project, the progress had been very slow. But Immortal Jinyuan had always enjoyed working on Drought Star. It was as fun as being an MC. Most cultivators use heavenly lightning as their main form of tribulation. At that moment, the monk said, the power and scale of this heavenly lightning tribulation are related to one's realm. The higher one's realm, the greater the range and power of the heavenly lightning tribulation. But the scale of a planet's tribulation will definitely be global. What the monk means is that if Earth's tribulation isn't handled well, a lot of cultivators might be electrocuted. Miss Awan echoed. Global. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal was astonished. This was an upgrade for a planet's tribulation. Naturally, the power of the heavenly lightning tribulation would be unparalleled. If a cultivator outside was struck by it, they would probably die. I understand what you mean, Master. You want me to communicate with all the countries in the world so that cultivators can do their best to protect themselves from the heavenly tribulation? Fang Xing cupped his chin and shook his head. I don't think that's enough. It's like a flu outbreak, you can't make everyone obediently stay at home. There will always be people courting death who want to go out and take a look. Brother Fang's words make sense. Staying at home or using magic artifacts for protection is far from enough to solve the problem. At that moment, the monk shook his head. Senior Immortal, you're oversimplifying things. The scale of Earth's tribulation is certain to be global, but this humble monk never said that it had to be heavenly lightning tribulation. Actually, if it was heavenly lightning tribulation, it would be easy to deal with, they just needed to think of a way to guide it somewhere. Ling Zhenren was a living human lightning rod. But Earth's tribulation wasn't as simple as heavenly lightning tribulation. This would be an attack launched by the condensed power of various planetary spirits like the spirit of the sun. As far as the monk knew, the energy of these planets' spirits came from the chaos of the universe. To put it bluntly, it was the same substance as the chaos in the middle circle of the unspeakable land. If a cultivator from the domain of the gods was soaked in it for 3 minutes, they would be done for. As for Earth cultivators, they would probably die if they touched it. Then, Master, do you have a solution? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked at that moment. This humble monk has an egg. The monk said. Me too. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal raised 2 fingers. 2. Golden lamp? The daily life of an immortal king. Chapter 1294. The monk took out his divine beast egg, which had been incubated for 300 lifetimes without bearing fruit. The entire egg was dark blue in color and had a crystal-like texture. There were purple patterns on the outside of the eggshell that looked like they were carved, which reflected beautiful light in the light. Master, do you mean to draw all the energy that erupts during Earth's tribulation into this egg? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal understood. That's right. The monk nodded. The power of chaos has the characteristic of mutual attraction. This poor monk's egg was nurtured by chaos, and is suitable to be used as a primer. In fact, it wasn't hard to find a magic weapon that contained the power of chaos. The heads of the major clans in the domain of the gods probably had one. World-defying magic weapons weren't rare in the domain of the gods. But a world-defying magic weapon infused with the power of chaos was priceless. If a world-defying magic weapon contained the power of chaos, it could substantially increase its power. A world-defying magic weapon with 1% of the power of chaos could increase its power by 5%, even if it only contained a trace of its original power. This was also why Tao gods were so keen on raising divine beasts. These creatures, which were born from chaos, were naturally infused with the power of chaos into divine weapons. They were similar to enhanced syringes. Using something from a divine beast, such as its horns, hair and so on, as supplementary materials to strengthen a world-defying magic weapon, there was a small probability that the magic weapon would gain the power of chaos. Golden Lamp's divine beast egg had been extracted from chaos a long time ago. But the difference between it and other Tao gods was that there should be some movement in normal chaos after 10 or 20 lifetimes. The monk's egg seemed to be particularly special. Like Neza, it refused to come out no matter what, so the monk had thought of using Earth's tribulation this time. This poor monk has his own selfish motives, but I hope that everyone can help me, the monk said to everyone. It's just a matter of convenience. Master, you're too polite. I also want to know what on earth will be born from this egg of yours. After saying that, Senior Immortal turned around and took out his phone to make several calls. During this time, Senior Immortal spoke as many as 7 or 8 different languages. Upgrading the Earth was a major event. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had already asked Huaxiao Alliance for instructions, and hoped that the head of state could consult with the leaders of various cultivation countries. This was beneficial to all the cultivators on Earth. On one hand, it solved the problem of insufficient spirit qi. On the other hand, it allowed the true immortal realm to be further liberated. Done. 10 minutes later, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal turned around and replied, "This afternoon, Guoping, the planet's diplomatic envoy, will come to Battle Sect to meet His Majesty King Kai in person. Everyone will determine the specific time for Earth's upgrade. I'll have to trouble Kai-sama with this matter. This matter should be settled as soon as possible. The initial date is Tuesday, December 1st, although Tyrant was the one who brought up the idea of upgrading the Earth. Tyrant was not the only one. However, Tyrant didn't want too many people to know his identity. It was actually suitable for Miss Ah-wan to handle this matter. It would be better to directly establish Divine Tao Star on the surface in order to have more friendly exchanges with Earth, to actively upgrade Earth, and to benefit all cultivators on Earth. Hey. Will there be a reward if I show up? The young girl put her hands on her hips and asked confidently. This humble monk can provide Miss Ah-wan with 3 additional consecration services. The tyrant smiled. Deal. Miss Ah-wan nodded. At that moment, the tyrant sighed silently in his heart. This world king of the divine world was too easy to coax. Since he was already on Earth, wouldn't it be better to directly ask Ling Jinren for an enlightenment spell? This enlightenment spell was more powerful than his consecration spell. Elsewhere, Patriarch Zhou woke up from his coma. His whole body was covered in bandages. His head in particular was wrapped up tightly, and his whole body reeked of medicinal liquid. In the end, he still had the heritage of a great family. His family's medicine storehouse was stocked with rare godly medicines and spirit plants for use at this critical moment. As soon as Patriarch Zhou woke up, he saw 6 men sitting around his bed, and was so startled that he almost fainted again. Why are you here? They were the other heads of the 6 families who had been beaten up. After being carried back by their respective clan elders for treatment, it didn't take long for them to wake up one after another. Patriarch Zhou was the last to wake up. We had something important to discuss, but you were the most seriously injured, so we came early to wait for you to wake up, said Patriarch Sheng. His head had been hammered into his collarbone by the monk earlier. After returning to the family, the Sheng clan elder had mobilized several people to pull his head out of his body and put it back in its place. The 7 great Tao gods had suffered a crushing defeat in the battle with the cultivators from Earth. This was something that no one had expected. Is that monk gone? Patriarch Zhou's heart was still fluttering with fear. He had been hit hard by the monk's heavenly hammer, and had felt like he had almost died. Patriarch Zhou, I think you're focusing on the wrong thing. Patriarch Sheng shook his head. This monk was indeed very powerful, but the problem was that the one who had really traumatized them wasn't the monk. It was that terrifying figure from Earth. Don't blame Patriarch Zhou. He was seriously injured by the monk's hammer, and actually has no idea what happened afterwards. The other head sighed. They actually envied Patriarch Zhou. His Tao God brain had been destroyed as soon as that young expert from Earth's heavenly hand had appeared. Fortunately, it had been destroyed quickly enough, and Patriarch Zhou hadn't been able to fully react. After that, he had been hit by the monk's hammer, so he naturally didn't know how terrifying Wang Ling was. In contrast, the other 6 Tao gods had faced Wang Ling's in a head-on confrontation with their virtual bodies, and then been beaten up en masse. That kind of mental blow was truly indescribable. The other heads couldn't help sighing with emotion. After this upgrade, I think it won't be long before Earth catches up to the domain of the gods. 100 years? Maybe 1,000 years? Maybe it won't even take that long. Compared to all that, I just want to know when such a figure appeared on Earth. Could he be a Tao ancestor? He can't be a Tao ancestor. We all know this very well. It looks like the Gu, Wang, and Lu families already knew the details, and deliberately didn't make a move this time. That's right. Now that our cultivation has been damaged, I'm afraid the gap between us and the 3 clans will widen. The Lu clan's foundation is not strong to begin with, but after this incident, it is very likely that they will surpass us and step on our heads. At that moment, Patriarch Zhou, who had just woken up from his serious injuries, understood. So what do you mean? In our current state, we definitely can't suppress the Wang and Gu families, since we can't beat them to begin with, but we can still bully the Lu family. Patriarch Sheng said, the 7 of us have lost all our dignity in this battle, and all the forces in the domain of the gods will definitely have some complaints about this. Taking it out on the Lu family is one way to suppress them, and the other is to intimidate them. Chapter 1295. Wang Ling's slap had caught Patriarch Zhou off guard. Because of this, his impression of Wang Ling was actually very limited in this battle. After all, Patriarch Zhou had never had the experience of facing Wang Ling's virtual body head-on. He couldn't understand the other patriarch's fear. But to be honest, Patriarch Zhou didn't think this was a good idea. None of them were in peak condition right now. If he hurriedly attacked the Lu family, and if something went wrong, he was afraid that he would really be consigned to eternal damnation. There are risks in doing this. Have you thought about it, my lords? Patriarch Zhou asked. He felt that it was even more important to keep a cool head at a time like this. It's very clear that the Wang, Gu, and Lu families are working together. Although we're targeting the Lu family, how can you guarantee that the Wang and Gu families won't send help? Everyone else fell silent at these words. Yes, they couldn't guarantee that the Gu and Wang families wouldn't help. These two patriarchs were both at the upper Tao God realm and were far stronger than them. They had come to the Zhou residence to wait for Patriarch Zhou to wake up, thinking that their plan to suppress the Lu family this time would be supported. In the end, they hadn't expected Patriarch Zhou's words to cause them to sink into deep thought. Listening to Patriarch Zhou's analysis, I also think that this seems risky. That's right, if things go badly, wouldn't our reputation be ruined even more? Everyone. We're 7 people working together. Patriarch Xing sensed that the atmosphere wasn't right and hurriedly said with wide eyes. The Wang and Gu families were indeed strong, but the 7 of them working together might not necessarily lose. Don't ask me about this. I haven't recovered from my injuries and don't want to take the risk. My lords, please go back. At that moment, Patriarch Zhou sighed and shook his head. My lords, please do as you please. I won't see you out. Since they had already been asked to leave, there was no point in staying here any longer. It was Patriarch Sheng who had originally proposed the idea of a crusade. Naturally, he didn't want to leave the matter at that, and left in a huff with a flick of his sleeve. After the 6 patriarchs were sent off, Zhou Zhentian, the Zhou family's grand elder, came to the confinement room in the rented land. He kowtowed to the awakened Zhou clan head. Clan head, there's a matter that I'm not sure if I should speak of. Zhou Zhentian kowtowed and asked. Speak. The Zhou clan's clan head closed his eyes and adjusted his breathing. After all, he was a Tao god. The external injuries on his body had almost recovered. His internal injuries could be healed in the future. His only regret was that he had lost his cultivation. We've always been on good terms with the 6 families. They might be disappointed if we disrespect the head of the Xing family. Zhou Zhentian said. He's just trying to regain his face. Which is more important, face or his life? Patriarch's words make sense. Zhou Zhentian was surprised. He didn't know if it was because the water in his brain had flowed out, but he felt that his master's thinking had become a lot clearer. That monk is very strange, but the experts on Earth are even stranger. The 6 of them couldn't defeat them even if they joined forces. Therefore, it's better to be careful, said the Zhou family's patriarch. Actually, after saying so much. In the end, it could be summed up in 3 words, chicken out. Go back and pick some treasures from the medicine warehouse and send them to the 6 families. This is a little help that I can provide. The Zhou family's clan head said this and slowly closed his eyes. You may leave. Yes. Under the instigation of the Xing family's clan head, the remaining 5 Tao gods finally decided to join the battle and carry out the plan to suppress the Lu family. They flew side by side in the air, leaping over mountains and rivers, heading straight for the Lu family's forbidden land. The divinity territory was so vast that ordinary cultivators would have to go through several twists and turns if they wanted to travel. They even had to consider the restrictions in the air. Not to mention the special privileges of the 10 families, the Tao gods were the leaders of the families. They could even ignore the existence of the restrictions and travel between different areas. The Zhou family's clan head said so much, but to put it bluntly, he's just chickening out. The Xing family's clan head's face was gloomy. He had already thought about the feasibility of this operation. The Lu family would never think that they would directly cause trouble for the Lu family after just going through a great battle. Most importantly, the Lu family's forbidden land was very far from the Wang family and the Gu family. The two clan heads would not easily make a move. Even if they sent reinforcements, they would have to hurry. If the 6 Tao gods worked together to suppress them, the Lu family would not be able to wait for reinforcements to arrive. We must act as soon as possible. We must finish this quickly, the Li family head said. He also thought that this plan was feasible. At this moment, the 6 Tao gods moved together in the air. Wherever they passed, the space distorted and became blurry. They crossed mountains and seas, crossed crowds, stepped through space tunnels, and leaped to the place they wanted to go. We're finally here. When they were still some distance away from the Lu family's forbidden land, the 6 Tao gods stopped. They focused and adjusted their breathing, quickly focusing their minds. In front of them was a bustling city. It was the Lu family's land. The plaque at the city gate was engraved with the words, Lu City, in huge golden letters. They did not take the Lu family seriously at first. After all, the Lu family was ranked last among the 10 families. Not only was the Lu family weaker than the 10 families in terms of combat power and overall foundation, but they were also ostracized by the 10 families in the divinity territory. There were too many uncertainties in the 10 families' position. No one knew how long the Lu family could stay in the 10 families' position. Moreover, the Lu family had been in turmoil ever since they became the 10 families' leader. Previously, a direct descendant of the Lu family, a girl, had left. No one knew what she was doing on Earth. The Lu family had a bad reputation. In the sky, the Xing family head laughed and said, "Heh, the 6 of us have gathered here and attacked together. We have given Lu Fengnan enough face." He called out the Lu family head's name directly without any respect. The aura of the 6 Tao gods hovered in the sky above Lu's city. The pressure was not as terrifying as the brain of the Tao god, but for the cultivators of the god realm, it was not much weaker. Countless members of the Lu clan and citizens in the city raised their heads. Their eyes were filled with terror. Everyone could feel that the 6 Tao gods had come with ill intentions. They were probably here to provoke a war. The 6 Tao gods have gathered in front of Lu's city. The Lu family is honored by your presence. I wonder why the 6 Tao gods are so aggressive. The Lu family head welcomed them in front of the city gate. He walked out of the city and looked down at the sky. He raised his hand and bowed. He had the aura of a scholar, gentle and refined. The 6 of us are here. Why isn't the master of the Lu family coming to see us? Isn't Lu Fengnan not giving us face? The Xing family head took a step forward and questioned coldly. Meanwhile, on Earth, the monk projected the scene from the god realm and played it on the screen in the True Venerate Hall. There was still some time before Guoping arrived. Before Guoping's arrival, everyone in the True Sovereign Hall was watching the battle. Ha ha ha, monk, you guessed it right. They really made a move. Miss Awan stared at the screen intently. She didn't expect everything to turn out as the monk had predicted. The script has already been written for them. The monk put his palms together and said, Amitba. Then, he smiled and said, why don't you guess how many Tao gods will die in this battle? Chapter 1296. So they can die? Miss Awan looked surprised when she heard the monk's words. The death of a Tao god is different from the death of an ordinary cultivator, said the monk. After all, they had already become Tao gods. Even if a person of this level died, it was also possible to exchange one's cultivation for a life. But even if they didn't die in the end, no matter how you looked at it, the attack of the 6 Tao gods this time had ended in a bloody loss. Using the cultivation of dozens of lifetimes in seclusion to pay for one's impulsiveness didn't sound like something a Tao god should do. The monk sighed in his heart and felt sorry for them. In the end, it was the superior cultivation resources of the domain of the gods that had made these upper-level cultivators too arrogant. Even Tao gods couldn't avoid it. In contrast, the two from the Wang and Gu families. Their hearts were as still as water. This was the bearing that upper-level cultivators should have. To be able to stay in the top two all the time, this made sense. It's all fate. The monk sighed inwardly as he looked at the image projected on the screen. The script of the 6 Tao gods had actually already been laid out clearly. As cultivators, if they were too impetuous, they wouldn't be able to accomplish much. Even if they were lucky and achieved great things, once they fell, they would be smashed to pieces. At that moment, Death Heavenly Tao had already arrived in the true venerated Great Hall. Holding the Buddha golden lotus in his hands, Zhuo was released from the core world by Death Heavenly Tao. Hello, Brother Zhuo. Hello, Director Zhuo. Everyone in Battle's sect cupped their fists in salute. Looking at the scene in front of him, Zhuo scratched his head. When Senior Death Heavenly Tao took me and Junior Sister Lotus Sun to the domain of the gods to watch, I thought the battle was over. I didn't expect it to start again so soon. Before leaving the domain of the gods, Lotus Sun and Zhuo had heard Death Heavenly Tao's analysis of the 10 major families in the domain of the gods. They just hadn't expected it to come true so quickly. How's Student Lotus Sun doing? Fang Xing asked as he stared at the Buddha golden lotus in Zhuo's hand. Zhuo smiled. Let her speak for herself. Seeing Fang Xing, Wang Zhen, Lu Qingyi, Gu Xuanji and Immortal Zhen Yuan in the true venerated Great Hall, Lotus Sun was very surprised. On the way back to Earth earlier, Zhuo had told Lotus Sun more or less everything about Battle's sect. Moreover, he deliberately kept her in suspense, saying that there were a few classmates she knew in the Battle's sect. After ruling out Wang Ling, Lotus Sun had a lot of guesses. She guessed that it was Wang Zhen, Lu Qingyi, Immortal Zhen Yuan under the alias Zhen Yuan, and Gu Xuanji. That was because they were all transfer students who were good at their studies. Furthermore, he seemed to be very friendly with Wang Ling as soon as he entered number 60 high school. But she never would have guessed that Fang Xing would actually be in cahoots with them. Classmate Fang Xing, so you're also, the young girl was stunned. Now she finally understood. Why had Fang Xing and the others been unexpectedly eliminated the night before the final battle in the 9 Dragon Mountains art competition? Because if these people participated in the competition, the others didn't even need to play. Senior Zhuo, what happened to Junior Sister Lotus Sun? I realized that number 60 high is a place with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. It's so scary. Lotus Sun's mood was very complicated. I'm really sorry for keeping it from you for so long. Fang Xing smiled. It's fine. I won't be surprised by anything I see now. After the experiences of the past few days, Lotus Sun felt that her eyes had improved tremendously. She felt that the cultivation world was very small. Because there were so many experts lying dormant by her side. She also felt that the cultivation world was very big. It was as vast and boundless as the divine domain, making people yearn for it. Are you taking notes? At that moment, Fang Xing noticed that Lotus Sun was diligently writing things down in her little notebook. Senior Death Heavenly Tao said that if I return to my physical body, I'll forget my memories. That's why I wrote it down. Lotus Sun smiled. I'm now sketching classmate Fang Xing. We'll be good friends from now on. Fang Xing shrugged. It's fine if you want to be good sisters with me. Lotus Sun. After returning to the realm of the gods' Willow City, it was out of everyone's expectation. In the face of the Xing family's patriarch's overbearing questioning, the Xing family's master Xing did not respond. This Lu family grand elder didn't have the slightest hint of fear on his face. Lord Tao God came to our Lu family's city gates, and we treated him with courtesy, but Lord Tao God is so overbearing. Who's the one losing face? The Lu family grand elder smiled. My lord has always been undistracted when he's in seclusion. I think the 6 Lord Dao gods won't make things difficult for our Lu family for not taking action earlier, right? After he said this, the expressions of the 6 Dao gods changed slightly. The Lu family Grand Elder actually knew the purpose of their trip. This was a little thought-provoking. It was as if he had already expected this. It seems that the Lu family Grand Elder is well aware. I think there's no need to play dumb. At that moment, Patriarch Li snorted and laughed. Our 7 families are fighting for the divine domain, but your Lu family took the lead and hit it home, ultimately leading to our defeat. This Patriarch Li didn't mention anything about the Gu and Wang families, and instead directly threw the blame on the Lu family. The Lu family Grand Elder was a little flabbergasted by such rogue behavior. You can always find a way to frame someone. The Lu family Grand Elder shook his head with a wry smile. Then, what do you want to do? It's very simple. Since you're not willing to protect the divine domain, it's necessary to pay some money. Patriarch Li said, 10 billion divine gems for each of our families will be enough. But if your Lu family can't pay it, then you have to think about the consequences. What consequences? You have to think about the people behind you and the disciples of the Lu family. That was all. The Lu family Grand Elder's face darkened. He knew that it was not easy to be the 10th among the aristocratic families. But he didn't expect to be bullied to this extent. How about this? I'll make a bet with the Dao gods. If I lose, the Lu family will be at your disposal, said the Lu family Grand Elder. Oh. What bet? The head of the Xing family was intrigued. You're all Dao gods, but you're bullying a small Dao master like me. It's a joke. In terms of combat power, I admit defeat. The Lu family Grand Elder bowed and said, later, I'll go first and use the land of the divine domain as the limit. After 3 minutes, you'll act. If you can find me, I'll lose. Otherwise, Lord Dao gods, please leave immediately. Do you know the difference between a god and a Dao master? The head of the Xing family could not believe that the Grand Elder of the Lu family would say something like that. It's enough for me to find you alone. If the 6 of us work together, we can dig you out no matter where you hide. I think you shouldn't be too confident. Then we'll wait and see. The 6 Dao gods in the void nodded. The divine domain was vast. Even if the Lu family Grand Elder was a Dao master, he couldn't go to the Wang family or the Gu family to ask for help. They wanted to see what the Lu family Grand Elder wanted to do. On Earth, the onlookers were also surprised. Hey! Monk! What does the Lu family Grand Elder want to do? Can a Dao master hide from the god of thieves? Miss Ah Wan put her hands on her waist and asked. Of course not. The monk couldn't help laughing on the spot. He had already guessed what the Grand Elder of the Lu family was trying to do. This Grand Elder of the Lu family is a smart man. He's only using this skill because the aftermath of Ling Zhenren's palm will affect the people in the city. Wow! Isn't this the legendary teleportation of graves? Miss Ah Wan's eyes lit up. This TV show was so good. She couldn't wait. Chapter 1297. I think Lu Qingru is probably crazy. How can a Dao master like him escape? The Xing family master said the name of the Grand Elder of the Lu family. He chuckled. He didn't know what Lu Qingru was thinking. Any one of the 6 Dao gods could cover the entire divine realm with their spiritual senses. Not to mention 3 minutes, even if Lu Qingru was given another 30 minutes, they would still be able to dig themselves out even if they were buried underground. As soon as the bet started, Lu Qingru turned into a beam of light and disappeared. He was extremely fast. He only had 3 minutes. He used all the treasures and tools that could be used to speed up. The Kunpeng token, the Dharma artifact he borrowed from the Lu family master, played a crucial role. It was mixed with 2% chaotic force, increasing its power by nearly 10% from its original base. When he held it, he injected spiritual energy into it, turning his arms into Kunpeng wings. He disappeared into the horizon in the blink of an eye. Lu Qingru knew he couldn't escape. His ultimate goal was to find a place where no one was. The best place was the divine ocean. 1 minute left. Without hesitation, Lu Qingru flapped his Kunpeng wings. He put them away when he was close to the surface of the divine ocean and dove into it. The divine ocean was bright and the depths were dark. Every meter he went down would put him under great pressure. After 40,000 meters at the bottom of the divine sense sea, there were no signs of life. A Tao master could dive up to 5,000 meters at most. Tao gods, on the other hand, could dive 40,000 meters down. This was the huge difference in realms. At this moment, close to the limit of the deep sea, Lu Qingru's eyes emitted light like searchlights. In a trench in front of him was an ancient ruin of the god realm. There were ancient buildings that had been eroded by the sea water of the deity sea. These buildings were extremely fragile after being soaked in the sea water all year round. They could be torn apart easily. There were all kinds of immortal ships, spirit boats, and even cultivator corpses hanging on the walls of the trench. The divine ocean of the divine realm was an extremely mysterious place. Countless cultivators from the divine realm used modern technology to explore this place. Most of them were buried here forever. Choosing this trench was something that Lu Qingru had planned for a long time. There were very few traces of life around this trench, and it gave off the feeling of a seabed garbage dump. The buildings, the waste, and the corpses of the dead were all piled up in this trench. It exuded a very foul smell all year round. We're finally here. Arriving at the destination, Lu Qingru was completely relieved. Basically, everything was as he had expected. Soon, Lu Qingru, who was 5,000 meters away from the sea, felt a powerful aura coming from the sea. He ran for 3 minutes. The Tao god took less than 3 seconds to catch up with him after 3 minutes. The opponent's chasing speed was terrifyingly fast. Relying on his powerful spiritual sense to lock onto him, Lu Qingru knew that he had no chance to escape. Soon, 6 divine flames appeared at the bottom of the sea. These were the flames emitted from the bodies of the 6 Tao gods after they lit up the core world. They were also known as divine flames. This was also one of the symbols of the Tao gods. However, the divine fire didn't have any other effects. They were mostly used by the Tao gods as human torches. The lighting was also very good in extremely dark conditions. Kunpeng token. Through the light of the divine fire, the Xing family master clearly saw what Lu Qingru was holding. He knew that this was one of the magic artifacts that the Lu family master, Lu Fengnan, was proud of. Lu Fengnan gave you the Kunpeng token? The Xing family master laughed. Did he become muddle-headed after being in seclusion? You're just a Tao master. Even with the Kunpeng token, you can't outrun us. In his opinion, the Kunpeng token that Lu Fengnan gave away was probably for nothing. It was a magic artifact that was fused with 2% chaotic energy. It was very valuable as a collector's item. Lu Qingru, you've already lost. Then, according to the agreement, accept your punishment. The Li family master directly attacked. He didn't hold back. His right arm expanded infinitely as he stretched out, surrounding the Lu family grand elder like a mountain. Lu Qingru felt that he could still struggle. He activated the Kunpeng token, opened his wings, and flapped them fiercely, causing the seawater in front of him to boil. Affected by the resistance of the deity sea, all movements in the deity sea would slow down. Especially when the water suddenly became turbulent, Lu Qingru was sure that the other party wouldn't be able to catch him so easily. An ant trying to shake a tree, I don't know what you're talking about. However, the power of a Tao god was still displayed at this moment. The Li family master's hand was covered in the Tao god's seal and directly ignored the resistance of the seawater. He grabbed Lu Qingru like he was fishing the moon from the sea, and wrapped him in his palm. Got him. The Li family master was very proud. The other 5 gods followed and looked at Lu Qingru, who was caught in the Li family master's palm. A mere Tao master, do you dare to fight against a god? The 5 family masters sneered. So even gods work together to bully people? Do you think you deserve to be called gods? Lu Qingru's expression was cold. He calmed down, and even under the gaze of the 6 Tao gods, he didn't show any fear. This made the Li family master feel very strange. I don't know where you get your confidence from, a mere Tao master. He tightened his grip, causing elder Lu Qingru to instantly feel a pain as if his body was about to explode. You're about to die, and you're still pretending. How laughable. Lu Qingru endured the pain and retorted, Grandmaster is right, the deity realm should be baptized. If people like you can become Tao gods, the future of the deity realm is endless and dark. You, shut up. The Li family master scolded. He wanted to crush Lu Qingru right now, but he also felt that if Lu Qingru died now, it wouldn't be enough to establish his prestige. Thus, the Li family master sneered. Lu Qingru, you lost the bet. I will execute you in front of your Lu family members in front of Lu City. Execute me? Yes, the Li family master's expression was cold. This is the result of disrespecting a god. Then I'm sorry. Lu Qingru suddenly said. What did you say? I said I'm sorry, the ones who might die are you. Then, he opened his mouth wide and directly spat out the golden talisman that the golden lamp had given him. Do you think a golden talisman can save your life? The Li family master said in a low voice. Not necessarily. At that moment, Lu Qingru laughed loudly, then threw his head back and shouted, Hurry and invite my Buddha Wang Ling. As soon as he said that, the golden talisman vibrated. Then, it exploded with a blazing light. A hand descended from the sky, blotting out the sun, and directly pierced into the spirit sea. Again, the 6 great Tao gods trembled in fear. They all felt a death omen descend on their heads. This is Ling Zhenren's hand? Everyone in the main hall of battle sect perfected lord was shocked. The next moment, a split screen appeared on the screen. It directly switched to the Wang family's small villa. At that moment, Wang Ling was bored to death, fiddling with the square fish tank in front of him. Then, he used his slender and fair fingers to pick up 6 small stones in the fish tank. Chapter 1298. This fish tank was actually one of the monk's magic artifacts, and was called the fishing law enforcement tank. It could lock onto any river that the monk had traveled to, and connect the space inside the fish tank to them. The size of the space was related to the strength of the fish tank user. The monk had predicted that the 6 great Tao gods would chase them to the divine sea of the domain of the gods, which was why he had given Wang Ling this fish tank. But the fish tank's locking range was very limited, and it was impossible for it to cover the entire divine sea. Even the monk himself couldn't do this. Given his strength, he could at most lock onto a third of the divine sea. But what the monk never expected was, in Wang Ling's hands, the fish tank space directly filled up the entire divine sea. It even overflowed on a large scale. In other words, it wasn't just the divine sea. In Wang Ling's hands, the entire domain of the gods was just the size of a goldfish tank. But to be honest, he felt that only the monk could come up with a magic artifact like the fish tank. He had suddenly gained a lot of inspiration from the monk. The monk had a lot of experience and a big brain, and knew too much strange knowledge. Wang Ling believed that his battle strength was above the monk's, but in other aspects, the monk indeed had something to learn from him. What are you going to do with them? Loopy Toad asked as it looked at Wang Ling. It could clearly feel the 6 small stones between Wang Ling's fingers trembling. Previously, the 6 great Tao gods had been clamoring about what a god was. Now, the answer was obvious. The next moment, the 6 small stones between Wang Ling's fingers were crushed to dust. Elsewhere, 5,000 meters deep in the divine sea. Lu Qingru looked up at the 6 great Tao gods who had been swiftly caught by the giant hand and instantly turned to ash, and fell into deep thought. This clearly wasn't the monk's hand. When the monk had been fighting the 7 great Tao gods earlier, the heavenly hand which had pierced the Zhou family head's Tao God brain had left a deep impression on him. Is it that senior from Earth again? Lu Qingru felt that this couldn't just be described as strong anymore. He rummaged through his mind and realized that he couldn't come up with an exact adjective for the moment. The 6 great Tao gods hadn't been able to resist at all. Under this pair of heavenly hands, they were neatly pulled out of the deep sea, and were instantly crushed to a bloody pulp before they turned to ash. He hadn't even heard the cries of the 6 great Tao gods. Lu Qingru's heart shook when he saw all this. He jumped out of the sea and felt that the aura of the 6 great Tao gods had completely disappeared. He died just like that? Lu Qingru felt his scalp go numb. To crush 6 Tao gods in one go, just what kind of existence was that? In a dark world, the souls of the 6 Tao gods appeared. This was a world shrouded in a dark purple glow. There was a low pressure everywhere, causing one's spirit to feel oppressed. God, Tao God of the soul. The faces of the 6 Tao gods were deathly pale. Their hearts were pounding, and their wandering souls were trembling. They God. They of. They King God. God. Tao God, of them, God, of gods of world of Tao God, it was world, of God of spirit, Tao Si. Being able to come to this world was one of the privileges of Tao gods. Here, they could sacrifice their cultivation in exchange for their lives. But they didn't know what had just happened. Everything happened too suddenly. What is the background of that senior on Earth? The 6 Tao gods didn't think they would be killed in a second. Is this everyone's first time in the God-forsaken land? The Li family master was shocked. Sigh, we should have listened more. The disciples of the Wang family, the Gu family, and the Lu family are all on Earth, and they must be related to that senior. It doesn't matter which family we attack, it's all for nothing. It's too late to regret. The other family masters sighed. It was too late for them to regret. In fact, if they thought about it carefully, they felt that if they had been calmer earlier, they wouldn't have encountered such a thing. The Lu family master, Lu Qingru, was just a Tao master. How dare he challenge the 6 great Tao gods? If he didn't have the life-saving golden talisman as his trump card, how could he be so confident? Master of the Xing family, it seems that you were the one who instigated this from the beginning. At this moment, the other family masters focused their attention on the divine soul of the Xing family master. Their eyes were filled with anger, and they were trembling with anger. Everyone, please calm down. I didn't expect things to turn out like this. The Xing family master couldn't resist the anger of the crowd, so he could only admit defeat. I think we should discuss how to go back. How else can we go back? The Li family master smiled bitterly. He looked at an ancient black altar in front of him. The entire altar was square, and it was engraved with obscure ancient Tao patterns. It exuded a mysterious aura. Do you see it? This should be the altar in the God-forsaken land recorded in the ancient books, said the Li family master. He explained the method of resurrection based on what he knew. In the middle of the altar is the God-forsaken pillar. Touch it and sacrifice your cultivation, and you can go back. Sacrifice cultivation. But how much do we have to sacrifice? The other family masters all asked. According to the ancient books, everyone's situation is different. It needs to be evaluated based on the cause of death and various aspects. I heard that if you reflect on yourself, you can greatly reduce the loss of cultivation. If you don't have any regrets, you can only sacrifice most of your cultivation. At this point, the other 5 gods understood what the Li clan master meant. The cause of death didn't need to be explained. They were all killed by someone from beyond the heavens. They were killed on the spot. They didn't even feel much pain before they were gone. This was a destructive and overwhelming power. Even now, the 6 Tao gods were still trembling as they thought about it. As for repentance, at this moment, they couldn't help but think of what Lu Qingru said to them when he summoned the golden talisman. Now it seems that what the great clan elder of the Lu clan said is not unreasonable. At this moment, the Wu family Dao ancestor sighed. The 6 of us called ourselves gods, but we were squashed to death by that senior from Earth like ants. After saying this, the Wu family Dao ancestor's eyes were filled with tears. He looked truly regretful. It was as if he had never been in such pain before. Then, he took a step forward and reached out to touch the God-forsaken pillar. Everyone, let me go first. I hope my repentance can move the God-forsaken pillar. About 10 seconds later, the God-forsaken pillar trembled slightly. At the same time, an ethereal voice rang out. You will be punished with 100 lives of cultivation to return to the world. This was the voice of the God-forsaken pillar's pillar spirit. 100 lives. The Wu family master's heart trembled. He was not satisfied with the verdict. I have clearly repented. The pillar spirit was furious. Shut up. You actor. Instead, he had transcended himself. However, after entering the forsaken land of the gods, he was greatly disappointed. There were no clues about Dao ancestor Wang here. The most troublesome thing was the pillar spirit in the forsaken land of the gods. If one were to use the monk's words to evaluate it, this pillar spirit was an emotionless fool. In other words, it would be extremely difficult for the 6 great Dao gods to bargain with the abandoned pillar of gods. Tyrant had already experienced it once. However, his cultivation was profound, and he was the one who had transcended himself. Therefore, the deduction of cultivation was not much. There were only 10 lifetimes in total. Therefore, the monk's combat strength at his peak was actually 3,920 lifetimes of cultivation. What was the concept of 10 lifetimes of cultivation? According to the current average realm data of cultivators on Earth. The life of a cultivator. The most talented could cultivate to itinerant immortal or true immortal level in just one lifetime. But such cultivators were in the minority, less than 1% of the global population. On average, a cultivator could cultivate up to the soul formation stage in one lifetime. That was about the same level as a grenade-throwing senior immortal who didn't eat heavenly Dao broccoli. So 10 lifetimes of cultivation was equivalent to 10 grenade-throwing senior immortals who didn't eat heavenly Dao broccoli. Of course, this was the monk's conservative estimate of the loss of cultivation. After all, the monk himself was a rare talent. His actual loss was definitely much greater than it looked on paper. Of course, the monk wouldn't say this to his face. He was mainly afraid of stabbing grenade-throwing senior immortal's heart. In the forsaken land of the gods, Patriarch Wu was punished with 100 lifetimes of cultivation for his clumsy and failed acting. But this wasn't the final judgment, because he hadn't paid his cultivation yet. So there was still room for negotiation. Patriarch Wu couldn't afford to lose 100 lifetimes of cultivation at all, even if he lost half of it. 50 lifetimes would be easier to accept than 100 lifetimes. Lords and lords, please go ahead. I'll go to the side and repent for a while more. Patriarch Wu was very helpless, and could only wave his sleeves as he continued to weep on the side. Then, he knelt on the ground and wept bitterly, as if he was at a funeral. He knelt down with the utmost sincerity. This time, he really looked like he was repenting, and was very sad. No amount of hypocrisy would work in front of the pillar spirit of the forsaken pillar of the gods. After seeing Patriarch Wu's failure, the remaining families also started to formulate their own methods. Thus, Patriarch Li stepped forward. He took the conciliatory route. Lord Pillar Spirit, this humble servant sincerely repents and admits his mistake. I hope that Lord Pillar Spirit can show mercy and reduce the punishment. If this humble servant has the opportunity to come to the forsaken land of the gods again, I can bring Lord some gifts to dispel your loneliness in the forsaken land of the gods in China. After saying that, Patriarch Li bowed to the forsaken pillar of the gods and then touched it with his hand. The pillar spirit finally gave the verdict. You may return to the world with 99 lifetimes of cultivation. The conciliatory route seemed to work. But this reduction was a little too little. This is only one lifetime, I might as well not reduce it. Patriarch Li grumbled as he let go of his hand with a face full of disappointment. Pillar spirit, then I shall continue to punish you with 100 lifetimes of cultivation. Patriarch Li hurriedly covered his mouth, wanting to cry but no tears came out. Patriarch Zhao was a neat freak. Before he touched the forsaken pillar of the gods, he purposely wiped the inside and outside of the forsaken pillar of the gods to show his sincerity. Lord Pillar Spirit, you see, how many years has it been since someone touched your body? You have accumulated too much. At this point, Patriarch Zhao realized that his words might be ambiguous, so he hurriedly added, Lord Pillar Spirit, please don't misunderstand, I am referring to the accumulated dust. You have accumulated a little too much dust. I hope Lord Pillar Spirit can show mercy. If I come here again, I will definitely wipe your body. Pillar Spirit, you shall be punished with 80 lifetimes of cultivation. This sentence made Patriarch Zhao heave a sigh of relief. With the experience of Patriarch Li, he did not dare to retort, nor did he continue to bargain. He only hurriedly nodded. I am willing to accept my punishment. Then, the forsaken pillar of the gods released a ray of light that hit Patriarch Zhao. Immediately after, Patriarch Zhao's divine soul disappeared on the spot. His soul was released, and the forsaken pillar of the gods helped Patriarch Zhao reconstruct his body as a Tao god. The remaining 5 Tao gods were dumbfounded. They did not expect Patriarch Zhao to accept the 80 lifetimes of cultivation punishment so easily. This old Zhao, he really slipped away fast. This is 80 lifetimes. I will not leave until the price is below 50 lifetimes. The voices of several patriarchs could be heard in the forsaken land of the gods. At this time, Patriarch Wu, who was the first to be punished with 100 lifetimes, seemed to be inspired by Patriarch Zhao. He hurriedly ran over and kneeled to wipe the divine pillar's body. In the end, the pillar spirit became flustered and exasperated. It's you acting bastard again, my skin is about to go bald. 150 lifetimes. 150 lifetimes. You might as well arrange for me to be reincarnated. Patriarch Wu couldn't take it anymore. Do you want to be reincarnated? No problem, the forsaken pillar spirit's voice was calm. Patriarch Wu knelt down again and kowtowed frantically to the pillar spirit. Lord Pillar Spirit. I was wrong. I was really wrong. At that moment, in Battle Sec's true venerated Great Hall, grenade-throwing senior immortal was suddenly a little curious. Can the pillar spirit really help him directly reincarnate? Yes. Monk nodded. If he reincarnates, who will he be reincarnated into? Everyone was curious. He knelt 3 times just now, maybe he will become Wu 3. Oj's words were astonishing. Everyone. Chapter 1300. Patriarch Zhao had given up his 80 lifetimes of cultivation to be liberated from the forsaken land of the gods. The first thing he did was to personally prepare a gift and pay a visit to apologize to the Lu family. He had been incited to begin with, and had believed Patriarch Xing's words, which was why he had acted unwisely. It wasn't easy for him to put down his pride and personally apologize in front of all the Lu family members and citizens of Lu City. Patriarch Lu wasn't a petty person, and naturally sent Lu Qingru to accept the apology. After delivering the gift and apologizing, Patriarch Zhao stood at the gate of Lu City for a long time and didn't leave. Lu Qingru could roughly guess what Patriarch Zhao was thinking. Lord of the Zhao family, do you want to ask me about that senior on earth? Zhao Ligang abruptly raised his head and bowed. That's right. May I know? Lord of the Zhao family is a Tao god, and should be able to sense that the senior has set up a restriction to block the tracking. Therefore, I'm not very clear about the information regarding that senior. Lu Qingru smiled. But my lord's eldest daughter, Lu Qingyi, is studying with this senior. If my lord wants to know more about him, it'll depend on your own ability. Thank you for your guidance. Patriarch Zhao bowed again. It had to be said that Patriarch Zhao's train of thought was actually very clear. This time, he was truly clear-headed, and understood that there was always someone better out there. When he was in the forsaken land of the gods, he had already thought things through. Rather than being entangled in bargaining with the forsaken pillar of the gods, rather than haggling with the forsaken pillar of the gods, it was more important to come out earlier and make friends with that senior on earth. Given that senior's divine powers, if he could form a relationship with him, wouldn't he get whatever he wanted in the future? Compared to that, 80 lifetimes of cultivation really wasn't much. Thus, after leaving the forsaken land of the gods, Patriarch Zhao began to make plans to send his own son to study on Earth. Apart from that, he was also thinking about how to make friends with Wang Ling. Although he currently couldn't figure out Wang Ling's name or where he lived, he could still figure out Lu Qingyi's whereabouts. Finding Lu Qingyi first was the first step in the whole plan. In the Zhao family's forbidden area, Zhao Ganglai summoned his eldest son, Zhao Qingxian. Zhao Qingxian was a little chubby, and was actually far weaker than Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi. If one were to describe him in one sentence, he would be the legendary foolish son of a landlord. The head of the Zhao family still had a lot of worries about sending Zhao Qingxian out. However, he thought that if he followed that senior on Earth, his disappointing son's interests would also improve. Before he left, the Zhao clan's clan leader gave him many instructions. After you get to Earth, first find Lu Qingyi according to the low value I gave you. Remember, you must be polite. Understand? Lu Qingyi. Zhao Qingxian scratched his head. Isn't that the eldest daughter of the Lu family? With that, Zhao Qingxian stretched out his hand. Give it to me. What is it? The head of the Zhao family was puzzled. Betrothal gifts. I've also taken a fancy to the Lu family's eldest daughter for a long time. Zhao Qingxian said confidently. Who told you to go down to the lower realm to place the betrothal gifts? I want you to get clues about that senior on Earth from Lu Qingyi, and then think of a way to befriend him. Do you hear me? My father is a Tao god. Why should I befriend someone on Earth? Zhao Qingxian was puzzled. In fact, he didn't care about the previous battle with the head of the Zhao family at all. And Zhao Ganglai wasn't going to tell him. If he told his own son that his father had just been crushed to death by that senior on Earth, he couldn't bring himself to say that at all. In any case, you must remember what I told you. Be polite. Get close to Lu Qingyi, and then get in touch with that senior on Earth. As for how to deal with it, it's up to you. What about the money? Even if you befriend him, you still have to spend money. After you go down to the lower realm, I'll prepare it for you. All right. I'll pack my things and set off right away. Zhao Qingxian nodded, then bowed to Zhao Ganglai. Then I'll take my leave first. Get lost. Zhao Ganglai snorted. For some reason, he felt a little worried, leaving the family's forbidden area. Zhao Qingxian breathed a sigh of relief. In fact, he had long had thoughts about Lu Qingyi. Coming to Earth personally this time was really a great opportunity. Elsewhere, Battle Sect decided to stop paying attention to the domain of the gods. There were currently 5 Tao gods trapped in the forsaken land of the gods. Although everyone wanted to know what was going to happen next, there were more important things to do at the moment. Guoping had been ordered to come here as Divine Tao Star's diplomatic envoy to discuss a plan to upgrade Earth. Everyone was of one mind when it came to the time. This was because it had to be carried out as soon as possible. Thus, it was directly set for Tuesday, December 1st. The problem was the location. This was a massive attack on Earth by the power of chaos condensed from the spirits of all the planets in the Milky Way. Guoping had given it an easy-to-understand name, Chaos Tribulation Cannon. If Earth could survive this attack, it would be considered a success. But it was obvious that it would be safer to carry it out in a place with few people. It was difficult for Earth cultivators to withstand the pressure of the power of chaos, and even the radiation could harm innocent people. Thus, the location of the primer for the monk's Chaos Egg became a problem. What about the boundless sea? Grenade-throwing senior immortal asked. There's no one here, but there are a lot of marine creatures at the bottom of the sea. The power of the radiation can reach deep into the sea, and even if we successfully transcend the tribulation, I'm afraid there will be a terrifying scene of corpses floating for thousands of miles. Guoping shook his head. He then turned his gaze to the girl in the Buddha's golden lotus. Miss Lotus Sun, what do you think? To put it bluntly, Earth's upgrade was all because of Lotus Sunday. Guoping very much wanted to hear this Miss Sun's opinion. Can I say it too? Lotus Sun was a little surprised. From the very beginning, the girl had come with a learning attitude, and everyone present had a higher realm than her. Of course. Ling Jinren specially planned this for this, so of course you can express your opinion, said Guoping. Hearing this, Lotus Sun's little face turned red, and she directly turned into a steam girl. How about the dead desert? Finally, she voiced her opinion. She felt that this was a very logical answer. But for some reason, no one present said it. As soon as she said it, everyone nodded. Good idea. The dead desert is desolate and uninhabited. Back then, the heavenly E-bomb experiment was also carried out there. Guoping nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. True, venerated one. Your Excellency, Realm King, let's choose this place. At that moment, the monk stood up and looked at Senior Immortal Dayulia and Miss Awan. Everyone else also stood up. As expected of Miss Lotus Sun's idea. This subject agrees. This subject agrees. This subject also agrees. And so, the choice of the location was decided. Everyone voted for it. But the girl somehow felt like she was being played. At that moment, the monk couldn't help laughing. He thought that Guoping was a real shrewd person. Actually, everyone present was a cultivator with profound cultivation and a certain level of vision. How could they be so conflicted about choosing a location? So all of this was really just a show. Everyone could see that after this incident was over, Qin Changxing's expression changed. The girl would probably become one of the core members here. Letting Lotus Sun express her opinion was also a way for the girl to integrate into the environment as quickly as possible. Even if she was at the foundation establishment stage. What was there to feel inferior about? Behind you. But there was still Ling Jinren. Chapter 1301. The meeting regarding the Earth's upgrade plan for December 1st ended amidst the cheerful laughter of the members of the Battle Sect. Seniors, fellow Taoists of the Battle Sect, please stay. I will report this matter to my superiors as soon as possible and make appropriate arrangements. Please rest assured. In front of Battle Sect's mountain gate, Guoping turned around and bowed to everyone. Thank you, Academician Gua. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal returned the salute. Then, everyone watched as Guoping steered a small immortal boat into the distance, transforming into a streak of light. The energy source for this small immortal boat was Wang Ling's hair, which saved energy and reduced emissions, and was super environmentally friendly. After confirming the location, the next step of the monk, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Miss Awan's plan was to set up a primer in the Dead Bone Desert. They had to think of a way to set up a device that would guide the primal chaos tribulation transcendence cannon to the chaos egg. This device had already been created by Monk in World 3909. He drew the blueprints in 3906. Then, he used another life to verify whether his idea was feasible or not. In the end, the research and development of the device was completed in World 3909. However, it was slightly more complicated to set it up. Because the devices were all spare parts, he needed manpower. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Miss Awan just so happened to be able to help him. The rest were Fong Xing, Crispy Noodles Dao Monarch, Immortal Jin Yuan, and a few juniors from the domain of the gods. They were divided into two groups. One wave was responsible for protecting the Battle Sect. The other group was in charge of guarding the area around the Undead Bone Desert and drawing it out of the barrier. To ensure that on the day of Earth's upgrade, no one slipped through the net and entered the core area that was about to be hit by the Chaos Tribulation Transcendence Cannon. Before setting up the equipment, the monk gave him a controller. Master, this is the external control device for the golden Buddha lotus. The monk smiled and said, "This penniless monk noticed that you have been holding the golden lotus. You look rather tired." A few minutes later, Death Heavenly Tao used the great sacrificial art to burn the handle to Lotus Sunday. Lotus Sun had obtained the ability to control the golden lotus. It was like piloting a small aircraft. It was very interesting. Moreover, the controller also had an invisibility mode, which could make the entire Buddha golden lotus disappear into thin air. Senior Golden Lamp is truly a genius. Lotus Sun marveled at the monk's strength. She quickly mastered the controls and piloted the Buddha lotus to complete all kinds of difficult flying maneuvers. It's so fun. Lotus Sun didn't have this kind of fun often. As the future successor of the group, Lotus Sun was followed almost everywhere by a group of bodyguards. The Huagua Water Curtain Group would hand over matters such as setting up the aircraft to specialized personnel. Lotus Sun usually couldn't touch the joystick. When she was tired, she drove the Buddha Golden Lotus to a stop in front of Audiobook. "Senior Joie, can I go somewhere?" For safety's sake, junior sister Lotus Sun shouldn't run around on your own. "If you want to go somewhere, Senior and Senior Death Heavenly Tao will accompany you," Audiobook replied with a nod. "I want to go back to the hospital and see Grandpa," Lotus Sun said. "It's only human nature." Audiobook nodded. "But Mr. Sun doesn't know about Shifu, so I hope that junior sister Lotus Sun will be careful when she meets him." "Don't worry, Senior Joie." Lotus Sun agreed with a wide smile. At the first military medical hospital, the pitiful old man's son still hadn't given up on his plan to organize an expert consultation to save his granddaughter. Audiobook and the others rushed to the hospital to see old man's son again. Lotus Sun, who was behind Audiobook in the Buddha Golden Lotus, could clearly feel that her grandfather had aged a lot. Even the hair at his temples had turned even paler. Audiobook also saw this scene and was very puzzled, so he asked Lotus Sun in a very low voice in the spiritual space, "Junior sister Lotus Sun, I have something to ask, but I don't know if I should ask." "Senior, please speak." "As far as I know, Mr. Sun should be wearing a wig. Why has the wig also turned white?" "Grandpa is wearing a bionic black technology wig, which can automatically adjust the color of his hair according to his mood," Lotus Sun answered truthfully. Audiobook was instantly enlightened. It had to be said that old man Sun's current state was indeed a little pitiful. He didn't know that the girl's soul had already been sealed in the Buddha Golden Lotus. "Mr. Sun." In the ward, Audiobook stepped forward to comfort old man Sunday. "No need to comfort me. It's been hard on you all these days." Old man Sun sighed. "It's my granddaughter's good fortune to have a large group of friends like you care about her." "Oh, that's right, why didn't that Master Jin Deng come? I heard that he came to the hospital first and used his magic power to seal my granddaughter's body so that it wouldn't be destroyed. I should be thanking him. This is just a stalling tactic. He's leaving for now because he's still looking for a way to save junior sister Lotus Sunday," Audiobook answered truthfully. He looked at the haggard old man in front of him. He thought of another question that he had always wanted to ask old man Sun in person. It was just that he didn't know if it was the right time to bring it up. So he was still hesitating. "Director Joie, if you have anything to say, just say it." Sunny Yuan seemed to have read Audiobook's mind. Now that things had come to this, he already regarded Audiobook as one of his own. "I want to ask Mr. Sun, who on earth was that fortune teller who told Miss Sun's fortune back then? It's not that I don't want to say it, it's that I don't remember." Old man Sun himself also felt that this was very strange. He frowned. "This person seems to be in my mind all this time, but also not." Audiobook frowned slightly. Sure enough, everything was as Shifu had described. Earlier, Shifu had used the king's eye to look at the appearance of the fortune teller in old man Sun's memory, but it had been dark. That memory had obviously been erased by someone else first. And this culprit was probably another expert hiding on Earth. Furthermore, it was very likely that he was as strong as Golden Lamp. For a moment, the scene fell into a brief silence. Lotus Sun drove the golden Buddha lotus to a steady stop behind Old Man Sun, all sorts of feelings welling up in her heart. Just then, the familiar and heavy clanking of chains came from the corridor again. The ancient gold men are here again? Audjua was alarmed and instantly became extremely vigilant. Senior Death Heavenly Tao, what on earth is going on? Senior Sister Lotus Sun's soul has been sealed in the golden Buddha lotus by Master, so they shouldn't be able to locate it anymore. Audjua was puzzled. Death Heavenly Tao quickly made a judgment. They're not after the soul. Audjua was puzzled. What do you mean? Death Heavenly Tao frowned. They're after the body. Audjua was shocked. Isn't Heavenly Tao supposed to have no desires? Why are you still lusting after my junior sister Lotus Sun's body? You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.